follow the yellow brick road, you're going to stumble on a lot of classic Hollywood scandals. Number 6, In Cold Blood. After Robert Blake stepped into the shoes of murderer Harry Smith back in 1967.
You never meant it. About going to Mexico, did you? Did you? Sure, baby. Sure we're going.
Later in 2001, Blake experienced another murder trial, only this time, he wasn't acting. When the body of Blake's second wife turned up in his vehicle, he became the prime suspect in the news story of the year. Even though Blake was acquitted of murder charges, the court of public opinion was slow to forgive and forget. It's especially hard given his performance in In Cold Blood, where Blake convincingly plays someone charged with the very same crime.
Please, try to control yourself.
No matter your opinion, it's easy to see why many opt out of seeing this movie. Number 5, Contagion. Years before the COVID-19 pandemic forced the world into quarantine, a sci-fi thriller hit screens with an uncomfortably similar premise.
You wait a few days. This will be tweeted and YouTube all over the planet.
Based on the name, it's obvious what Contagion is about, but it went viral in 2020 for more than its plot. No, the movie also features several small details about pandemic life that feel incredibly apropos. The masking, the social distancing, the bevy of conspiracies and social unrest. Contagion basically predicted exactly how the world would respond to a mass outbreak.
You really think this Dr. Hextall CDC person is Jesus in a lab coat? The government rushed the trials. The lawyers indemnified the drug companies.
It's quite a storytelling feat, all things considered. Although, that's also why many think it hits too close to home. Number 4, Powder. A solid but unspectacular installment in Disney's live-action catalog. The only time anyone mentions Powder anymore is to bring up the movie's director, Victor Salva.
I'm also the writer-director of Powder and Peaceful Warrior and Rites of Passage. I love drama, and I do drama very well, too.
In 1988, he was convicted of gross acts as the underage star of his film, Clown House. To reiterate, Powder is a Disney movie. A convicted felon not only got another directing gig, but this time for one of the most family-friendly companies on Earth.
You're not here to ask me questions. You're here to find out how I cheated. The only way you can make sense of it is what you need to believe.
Let that sink in. Despite some concerted protests, this wasn't the end of Salva's career either. He'd go on to help hit Jeepers Creepers too. Some of those scenes will definitely make you shudder, and not just because of the creeper. Number 3, The Fearless Vampire Killers. Spoiler alert, Sharon Tate dies in the movie.
Dearly beloved brethren, come close.
This isn't all. This isn't all.
Roman Polanski tries to save her character, but she falls victim to the vampires, and the credits roll. That wasn't the end of their story, though. The performers fell in love and got married, only for Tate to meet the same fate as her character 2 years later. You might know it better by the name The Manson Murders. It's one of the most notorious acts of violence in American history, so seeing Polanski and Tate unknowingly act out their future makes Fearless Vampire Killers
Time sure flies when you're having fun. Whew, Paimon's exhausted. Guess it's about time.
Vampires or not, this movie felt way too real. Number 2, Manhattan. In 1979, Woody Allen dated a young girl while also exploring feelings for 2 other women in his life.
Good thing. You should think of me sort of as a detour on the highway of life.
Oh, sorry, that's not Allen. That's the plot of Manhattan, a movie he coincidentally wrote, directed, and starred in. If some of those details seem familiar, it's because Allen himself has faced serious accusations of uncouth behavior towards his daughter, Dylan Farrow. While nothing's ever been proven, the substantial media attention has stained much of Allen's cinematic legacy.
Jesus, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I'm surprised.
Particularly the movie where he literally dates a teenager. With all this positive buzz, Manhattan might just be too far gone to ever recover in the eyes of the public.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos.
You really are a one-trick pony, you know.
Make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, every Harvey Weinstein film. If your favorite movie came out in the 90s or early 2000s, there's a good chance it's forever ruined thanks to the actions of one man.
Stage love will never be true love, while the law of the land has our heroines being played
Morning,
by
traveler.
pipsqueak
Morning,
boys in
Paimon.
petticoats.
Morning,
Bonus points if it has
Mualani.
female lead.
Harry, you're so... That was last night.
Hollywood for
I got a good
generations,
night.
to the
Here,
point it's
take
not
this.
fair to single out
It's
one
your
film.
prize for
He harassed
completing
so
the
many
album.
women that
I
his
picked yours up
legacy
too to
is
save you the trip.
comedies, horrors,
Wow.
dramas, and everything in
Thanks,
between.
Milani.
It's a real
When it
shame
comes
that
to
such a
helping
large
people,
part of
a
the
good
industry
guide
is
always
forever
thinks
tainted
one
by such
step
a
ahead,
despicable
right?
man.
Oh, and speaking of work, I guess our vacation's almost over, huh? And after talking to the others, it seems like everyone is just about
Then
ready to
again,
get back.
the real question is how his
Some
behavior
are
went
missing their
unchecked for so
families.
long. Which of
Others
these
are going
movies would
through
you pay to watch
dandelion
again with
wine
fresh
withdrawal,
eyes?
I
Let us
guess.
know in the comments below.
Even Chaska seems to be feeling it. Not that she'd ever admit it.
Funny thing is,
but
it
I have
just
noticed
continues
her
the
gazing
same
back
trend.
towards the flower
The guys who
feather
play
clan
the
at
bad
night.
guys
People that play the most horrible characters.
are really nice.
Friendliest, easiest to
Not over yet.
work with.
So I
And the guys who
say
play the good guys
we
are the
squeeze
assholes.
a few
The
more
assholes are the
unforgettable moments
comedians.
into the time we've got left.
We won't say any
Another
names,
group
but
photo.
It's kind of a very strange thing.
Hey,
Like
how
Vincent
about
Price,
taking one
known
right
to be the
after all this time,
creepy,
my mom's grown kind of
crazy
attached to
guy.
this
Guy
place.
was a gourmet cook
Great
who
idea.
happened to play
Why
creepy
don't you
characters.
spruce up this wall, and
This,
I'll go gather the others.
my friends,
See you over at
is
the
the moment
plaza.
of terror. What will the souffle be like when it comes out of the oven? Your guess is as good as mine.
Funny thing is, it just continues the same trend. The guys who play the bad guys
people that play
Documentation,
the
one of the
most
3
horrible
Ds at
characters.
SDN.
are really
Tends to
nice.
be a healthy amount of
Friendliest,
work.
easiest
I used to call it
to work
triple
with.
Ds, but I
The
was
guys who play
informed
the
that
good
had a
guys
different
are the
connotation.
assholes.
The assholes are the comedians.
Dispatching,
We won't say any names,
documentation,
It's kind of a
diversity
very
is the
strange
third.
thing.
Not in
Like
terms of
Vincent
priority,
Price,
of course.
known to be
Yep.
the
We're all
this
about
creepy,
diversity. Lana works
crazy
in the
guy.
mailroom.
Guy was a
From a
gourmet
different
cook
galaxy
who
altogether.
happened to play
And
creepy
then there's
characters.
Galen, way back there.
This,
Born with superhero.
my friends,
He's from
is the moment of
I
terror.
wanna say
Florida.
What?
Florida, of course. Florida man over there. Hey, easy on the bath salts.
That was one guy.
Hey, speaking of bath, where is the,
Oh, need a bio break?
excuse me?
Restroom. I mean, it's right over there. Sorry. At work, I tend to get a little
Corny?
corporate, Dick. Meet me in the records room when you're done. If you get lost, look for the door that says records room.
The Phantom Menace was almost...
Hi? Is this really necessary? Yeah! Ha!
Radar knows that sound means a Chewy delivery is on the way. All the goods,
take a picture together. Oh, not bad, not bad. You're all looking full of energy this morning. Not a trace of bedhead or dark circles in sight.
Oh, you even look out for stuff like that?
Well, what kind of guide would I be if I didn't pay attention to the details?
Yeah, and what kind of bard would I be if I didn't appreciate a good drink? What's that got to do with anything? Somehow, though, I know exactly what he means. Do you really think that? Or are you just playing along to keep Tone Deaf Bard happy, too?
I see no harm in a bit of nonsense.
Here, put on this Asha headband. It's a souvenir from the rest of us.
It really suits you.
Alrighty then. 3, 2, 1.
Paimon? Sorry. All that nonsense has got Paimon's head muddled. Her mind's gone completely blank.
Don't want it all to end, huh?
Almost a completely different movie. Originally,
Are you
Obi-Wan
worried
was
once you
the
say
main
those
character,
words?
and the
The
one who
vacation
frees
will
Anakin
officially
from
be over?
slavery on Tatooine. Qui-Gon. The cake
thought
submitted one
peacemakers
last
couldn't
alternate
read
take.
people's minds.
The Phantom Menace was almost a completely
Don't worry,
different movie.
Paimon.
Originally, Obi-Wan
Summer's
was the
sure
main
to come again.
character, and the one who frees
Just like you
Anakin
said when
from
you made that
slavery
wish
on
to the Pyro
Tatooine.
Archon.
Qui-Gon wouldn't
Even
have
though
shown
we'll
up
all
until
be
the
going
end.
our separate
Additionally,
ways.
Mace Windu would have
As
been
long
played
as we
by
cherish
Chewbacca
each other's
Kula.
friendship.
Jar Jar Binks
I
would have
just
had a
know that our
sidekick,
paths
and
will
Darth
cross
Maul would have
again.
been a woman. So let's dive in and take a look at what happened
quite the
behind the
talker,
scenes
huh,
to
Professor
arrive at the
Venti?
movie we got, and also take a look at what could
Well,
have been
I
Star
wouldn't
Wars: The
dare
Phantom
take
Menace.
credit for something
In the
like
early
that.
90s, George Lucas
Your
began
tone
seriously
would suggest
considering a return to
otherwise.
Star Wars.
Come
For
on,
years, Lucas had
Paimon
been
was just
pushing the
starting to feel
boundaries of digital
inspired.
effects through his company,
Why don't we just give it
Industrial
another
Light
try?
and Magic, and experimenting
Yeah,
with new
let's
techniques
do
on
it all
projects
together
like the
this
Young
time.
Indiana Jones Chronicles, which served
What
as a
should we
proving
shout?
ground for visual effects. His goal was to make filmmaking more efficient by using digital environments to replace costly, weather-dependent location
2,
shoots, and by
1.
introducing digital characters that could move more naturally and be animated with greater precision than traditional puppets or animatronics.
So,
a major turning
what are your
point came
plans
with
for the
Jurassic
future,
Park in
Bennett?
1993. Its
If you're having trouble
groundbreaking
deciding,
CGI proved that
you can
digital
always park
characters
it in
and
the People of
effects
the
could be
Springs for a
seamlessly
bit,
integrated
or
with live
however
action
long
on the
you
big
want,
screen.
really.
With VFX
Thanks for
advancing
the kind offer,
rapidly and
Moalani.
costs coming down, Lucas
I
felt the
actually
time
went
was
to see the
finally
Pyro
right.
Archon
He could
to
now
tell her
make
how
the
grateful
prequel
I am for
trilogy the way he
everything
had
she's
always
done for
envisioned,
me.
without the
She
limitations
told
he
me that
faced
the
during
domain we
original
entered
films.
was an
To
abyssal
write the first
simulation of the
film,
Mare
Lucas
Javari.
approached Frank
It was
Darabont,
extremely
fresh off the
unstable.
Shawshank
And now,
Redemption, and a
it's
veteran
completely
of the
gone.
Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. The
Later,
talks quickly broke
when we
down
got
when
on to talking
Darabont
about my
discovered
future,
that Lucasfilm was an
she said I was
signatory
more than
of the
welcome
Writers
to
Guild
stay
of
here in
America.
Natlan.
Lucas's falling out with the
But also
Writers
that
and
she would
Directors
respect
Guild
my
dates
decision,
back to The Empire Strikes
whatever it
Back,
turned out to
when he
be.
defied tradition by
And after
skipping
thinking it
opening
over,
credits in
long
favor of
and
the now
hard,
iconic crawl.
I've
The
decided to
DGA
return to
fined him, and
Mondstadt.
in response, he quit
You
both
miss your
guilds,
dads,
vowing
don't
to work
you?
independently from then
That's
on.
definitely
And
part of it.
without the limitations he faced
I promised to tell them everything that happened
to
on
the
this
first
adventure.
film, Lucas
And I
approached
can't go
Frank
back on my
Darabont,
word.
fresh off the Shawshank
also,
Redemption, and a veteran of the Young
when I
Indiana
said
Jones
goodbye to my
Chronicles.
mom
The
and
talks
Dad,
quickly broke down
I
when
promised them
Darabont
I'd become
discovered
the
that
most
Lucasfilm
legendary
was an
adventurer in all of
signatory
Teyvat
of the
someday.
Writers Guild of America. Lucas's falling out with the Writers
And
and
no
Directors
adventurer
Guild
should stay
dates
in
back
one
to The
place for
Empire
too
Strikes
long.
Back, when he defied tradition by
Bennett.
skipping opening credits in favor of the now iconic crawl.
What if your
The
luck
DGA
starts
fined
going
him, and in
downhill again
response,
the
he
moment
quit
you
both
leave
guilds,
Natlan?
vowing to work independently from then on. Unable to hire a WGA
It's
affiliated
fine.
writer willing to go against the guild,
warmth and
Lucas ended
kindness
up
I've
writing episode
experienced
1
on this
himself,
adventure
which he
is
originally
enough to get
called
me through
The
all the
Beginning.
challenges
Just
that
weeks
lie
before
ahead.
filming began, he
As I
happened to run
attempt to shape my own fate, I want to take that same kindness and
screenwriter
pass it
behind The
forward.
Empire Strikes Back and
That's
Return
something
of the
I've
Jedi.
always
Lucas
believed
asked
in.
Kasdan if he
Hear,
wanted to take
hear.
a second pass
To our
at the
leader.
script, but Kasdan
To
declined,
our
knowing
leader,
there was little
Bennett.
time to make meaningful revisions
Cheers.
with production so close. As Kasdan later put it, for George, the movie is bigger than the script. Directing The Phantom Menace himself wasn't Lucas's first choice either.
This
He
is
initially
gonna be
reached out to
another
Robert
all-nighter,
Zemeckis,
isn't
Steven
it?
Spielberg, and Ron Howard, hoping
The
one of
fun
them would
never
take the
stops.
reins. But
Who's
all
up to
three
perform
turned him
next?
down. Reluctant to follow up one of the most iconic film trilogies in
Bennett's
history,
almost fallen
knowing the
asleep
pressure and
several times
expectations
now.
would be enormous. Ron Howard
No,
later admitted
no.
nobody wanted to follow up
I
Star
can
Wars.
still
It was an honor to be asked, but it would have been
going.
too daunting. With no willing takers,
Go
Lucas
get
was
some
left
rest
to
now,
direct
guys.
himself. a role he
And
hadn't
seeing
stepped
as you've
into
still
since
got
A
the
New
energy,
Hope. Star
I'll
Wars
leave
is
the
known
cleanup
for
to
its
you,
twists.
Milani.
In Empire Strikes Back, we were shocked to learn that Darth Vader was Luke's father, and in Return of the
Traveler,
Jedi, we were equally
perhaps you could
surprised
join
to
me
find
for a
out that
walk?
Leia was Luke's sister.
I know
The
a
Phantom
great
Menace almost
spot.
continued that tradition with what would have been one of the most shocking twists of all. Originally, Lucas named the older Jedi in the film Obi-Wan, and the younger Jedi Qui-Gon. After Maul kills Obi-Wan, who is the older Jedi in this version, Qui-Gon would promise to take on not just his mission, but also his name. Becoming Obi-Wan. This would add a deeper layer of meaning to Alec Guinness's line in A New Hope when he says, Obi-Wan, now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. Because in that context, he originally wasn't Obi-Wan, he was Qui-Gon. However, Lucas ultimately scrapped the idea. Another version of the script had Obi-Wan about 30 years old, older Jedi in the film, Obi-Wan, and the younger Jedi, Qui-Gon. After Maul kills Obi-Wan, who is the older Jedi in this version, Qui-Gon would promise to take on not just his mission, but also his name. Becoming Obi-Wan. This would add a deeper layer of meaning to Alec Guinness's line in A New Hope when he says, Obi-Wan, now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. Because in that context, he originally wasn't Obi-Wan, he was Qui-Gon. However, Lucas ultimately scrapped the idea. Another version of the script had Obi-Wan about 30 years old and sent to investigate the trade dispute alone. Qui-Gon would have first appeared when Obi-Wan, Padme, and Anakin arrive on Coruscant, greeting them as they stepped off the ship and being introduced as Obi-Wan's friend and mentor. And this version of the film would have centered on Obi-Wan, who was written with the same personality, dialogue, and mannerisms that would later be given to Qui-Gon in the final version. While Qui-Gon would still have died at the hands of Maul at the end of the film, as a secondary character his death would have carried far less emotional weight, as it would have been Obi-Wan and not Qui-Gon who saves Jar Jar, frees Anakin on Tatooine, and brings him to the Jedi Council to be trained. This change would have significantly altered the dynamic between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Instead of the older brother-style mentorship seen in the prequels, Obi-Wan would have taken on a more paternal role, becoming the first true father figure Anakin ever had. But that foundation would have quickly grown complicated.
You might be tone deaf, but you sure know how to sniff out a good view.
Glad you like it. Some stories aren't meant for the birds, only for the stars high in the sky. More like a story
as this
that
version
begins
hinted at
with
Padme
time
having a crush
itself.
on Obi-Wan. She's impressed when he
Long,
confidently
long ago,
challenges the Queen on Naboo,
time
gives him a
began to
long,
write the
admiring look as they
story of
enter
this
Mos
world.
Espa, and watches
To
him with
her,
quiet fascination
all
throughout their
living
time
beings
together,
were
making
equal,
Obi-Wan visibly
both in their
uneasy.
value
These subtle moments of
and
tension were designed to
insignificance.
evolve across the
Like an
prequels,
ancient
setting up a
scroll,
love
she
triangle between
engraved
Anakin,
upon her
Obi-Wan,
memory
and Padme.
all
What began
people,
as a
all
mentor-protege
events,
bond between Anakin
all
and Obi-Wan would
encounters,
slowly fracture
and
under
all
the weight of jealousy,
farewells.
rivalry,
Back
and
then,
unspoken
as an
feelings,
animal
adding more
spirit,
intimate and
I
emotionally
had a
charged
chance
layer to their
encounter
eventual
with time
conflict.
at the
Anakin
Thousand
is
Winds
also
Temple,
older in this version,
hearing
around
my
12,
wishes.
and wise beyond
She
his years,
entrusted
versus
me
the
with
9-year-old
fragments of her
happy-go-lucky child in the
Sounds
final
like
film.
you've
This
heard the
age
story
shift
of
not only
Time
gave
in the
Anakin a
Wind
more
before.
mature presence from the start,
Charming,
but also made
isn't
his
it?
eventual romance with
Through
Padme
the
feel
memories
far less
engraved
awkward.
in
He was much
rituals,
closer to her
poems,
age. It also allowed the
ruins, and
dynamic between
ancient
Anakin,
texts,
Padme, and
the
Obi-Wan to
same
naturally
beings she
evolve into a more
considered so
believable love triangle
insignificant
over the course
have
of the
met
trilogy.
her
Lucas later reduced
time
Anakin's
and
age
time
because
again.
he believed separating a younger child from his mother
this
would be
is the
more
story you
emotionally
wanted to
damaging
share?
to him. Additionally, there would have been no chosen one prophecy
like
in this
the
version of the
prologue.
script, and no talk
The
of
corruption of the
midichlorians
Mare
either. Later in the
Javari
film,
is
as the
tied
group
to
returns
time
to Naboo,
itself.
they're faced with the challenge
put
of
it
slipping
another
past
way,
the Trade
it
Federation's
is a calamity
blockade
present in
undetected. To pull
every
it off,
moment that will
Obi-Wan
ever
instructs
be.
Anakin to drop out of
Unlike
hyperspace
time
in
herself,
the narrow space
I
between
have
the
always
blockade and the
cherished
planet's
many
surface,
wishes
a maneuver
in my
Captain
heart.
Panaka insists is
500
impossible,
years
even
ago,
for a computer.
to prevent
but
the
Obi-Wan
corruption of
believes
the Mare
otherwise.
Javari
He tells
from
Anakin
spreading
that his
beyond
connection to the Force will
Tenochtitlan.
guide him to the exact
I
right
blew it
moment.
off the
Anakin
timeline,
closes his eyes and
turning
using
it
the
into
Force
the
brings the
windless
ship out
land.
of light speed just above the surface of the planet. A variation of this sequence would later be repurposed for The Force Awakens, when Han Solo pulls a similar trick entering Starkiller Base.
Oops.
Later, during the final
Seems
space
like I may
battle,
have
Anakin
confused
doesn't
you.
fly solo.
If
He's
you're
joined in the
asking about
Starfighter
how
by
the Mare
Padme, who
Javari
takes the gunner
disappeared
seat.
from
Despite the chaos
Tenochtitlan
around them
2
and the
or 3
constant barrage of
decades
enemy
ago,
fire,
there
Padme
may
remains
be someone
focused and
else
composed,
better suited
firing
to tell
several
that story.
missiles which destroy the
The Mare
command ship.
Javari
It's a far more
has been the
deliberate
bearer
and
of too
coordinated
many
victory
stories
than
that
the
weren't
final film,
meant to
where
be its
Anakin
own.
unintentionally blows up the
I
control
merely
ship
played a
by
part
accidentally
in one
mashing
of its
buttons in the
chapters.
cockpit. Plus, this
And the
version
choice
allows for
I
more
made
natural
500
chemistry to
years
develop
ago
between Anakin
came
and
with a
Padme,
price.
as they share a high-stakes moment
Some
that
souls were
builds
unable
trust,
to return to
teamwork, and
Mondstadt
emotional
as a
connection
result,
early on in their relationship.
while others
Obi-Wan
stayed to
also
settle
wears
in
all
this
black.
land,
It's not until he
merging
lands on
with the
Tatooine that he
Monitu to
disguises
become the
himself in the
Asha
robes
we
of a
see
moisture
today.
farmer. This choice
So
tied
the
into a
reason
broader
you're here
visual
in Keynote
direction Lucas
Talk is
initially had for the Jedi. When designing Luke's black outfit
Correct.
in Return of the Jedi,
I'm here
Lucas
to
said it felt a
collaborate
little
with the
more
current
Jedi-like.
Pyro
During early
Archon,
pre-production
Malika.
on The Phantom Menace, Lucas intended to push this a step further and wanted the Jedi costumes to have
Correct
armor
again.
and resemble padded
The
black
flame
riot
was
gear,
our
a
signal.
look that can still be seen
Only
in
by
early
having
concept art and
Malika open a
storyboards.
rift
However,
between
the
that
design
space
team
and the
pushed
true
back,
Mir Jabari,
arguing that it was
could I
difficult to
sneak
imagine
in
the
and bring
Jedi
back
in
all the
anything other than
souls
the
who
robes
wish to
worn by
return?
Kenobi, Yoda, and
As for
Anakin's
my
Force
little
Ghost in
trick
the
of
original
bringing back
trilogy.
memories
Lucas
as well.
explained that those outfits were simply casual
It's
attire,
not the first
not official
time I've
Jedi
pulled that
clothing,
off.
and resemble padded
Malika
black riot
also
gear, a
mentioned
look
that
that
you
can
were
still be
planning to
seen in early
introduce us.
concept art and
Looks
storyboards.
like I beat you to
However,
it, huh?
the design team
I was
pushed
glad
back,
to discover
arguing
that
that it
she
was
shares
difficult to
my
imagine
love
the
for
Jedi
fine
in
wine and
anything other than the
freedom.
robes worn by
We got
Kenobi,
along great.
Yoda, and Anakin's Force
Well,
Ghost in the original
it
trilogy.
really took
Lucas
it out of me
explained
for
that
a
those
few days.
outfits were simply casual
In fact,
attire,
I
not
still
official
feel
Jedi
pretty
clothing,
dead on my
but he
feet even
eventually
now.
relented, allowing the
Oh,
design team
really?
to adopt the Tatooine-style look for all the
But
Jedi
thinking
in
of all
the
the
prequels.
Aethelmead
Jar
and
Jar Binks is a
dandelion wine
dramatically
still
different
left to
character in
drink,
this early version of the
I
story,
suppose
too,
I
rather than a
can hang in there
trilogy.
a little
Lucas
longer.
You don't look that
explained that
tired
those
to
outfits
climb
were
on.
simply casual attire, not
don't
official
think you can
Jedi
just pull
clothing,
out that
but he
little
eventually
excuse and we'll
relented,
suddenly foot all
allowing the
your
design
bills.
team to adopt the Tatooine-style
how you
look for all
wound
the
me,
Jedi
Paimon.
in the prequels. Jar Jar Binks is a dramatically different character in this early riot gear, a look that can still be seen in early concept art and storyboards.
You'll
However,
hook
the
me up with
design
some
team
good liquor,
pushed back,
won't you,
arguing that it was
traveler?
difficult to imagine the Jedi in anything other than the robes worn by Kenobi, Yoda, and Anakin's Force Ghost in the original trilogy. Lucas explained that those outfits were simply casual attire, not official Jedi
protect
clothing,
Mondstadt,
but he eventually
and that everyone who wishes to stay there has the freedom to choose their own path.
relented, allowing the design
Do you know
team
if
to
Shimon
adopt
and
a
his-
Tatooine-style look for all
you're
the
up.
Jedi in the prequels.
I figured
Jar
you'd be
Jar
taking a
Binks is
nap
a
at this
dramatically
hour.
different character in this early version of the story,
Oh,
too.
yeah,
Rather than a clumsy
perfect.
comic
First
relief figure,
Malika,
he's
now
portrayed as
Chaska.
capable and quietly
Did you come
courageous.
all
The
this way
Gungans as
just
a
to make
whole
fun of
speak
me?
normally, and while Jar Jar still has a
Whoa,
youthful energy,
what a
he's far from
mess.
cool. In fact, before the final battle against the droid
looking for
army, he's
something?
promoted to general.
Well, I have those
putting
Secret
command of
Source
the
automatons to
Barrage.
thank for
When
all
Jar
this.
Jar hesitates,
Malika
Governor
wants me to
Nass
come up with a
reassures him,
solution.
saying,
It's
I
like she
understand
thinks
from the
I'm a
Jedi
miracle
you're a
worker
great
or
warrior warrior
something.
base. I know you'll
But
do
I'm
the
not,
position proud,
so
but
to make
even
up
more
for the
striking
difference,
is how this
I've been
draft
spending
explores
all
the strained
day sifting through
relationship between the Gungans
documentation.
and the Naboo. The
Anyway,
Gungans are treated as
what
second-class
about you guys,
citizens,
huh?
subjected to
What curveball
systematic
have you come to throw at me
discrimination.
today?
While the planet is named Utapau in this version, the humans are still referred to as the people of Naboo. This tension plays out in key
Hold up.
scenes. For instance,
Is she
when Jar Jar and
a
Obi-Wan arrive at the palace,
We picked her up on the beach near the flower feather
Jar
clan,
Jar is told to
along
wait
with this
outside.
cryptex.
Later, as they prepare
Seems
to
like
flee
a message
Coruscant,
intended
Padme
for the
initially
traveler.
refuses to let Jar Jar on the royal
cryptex?
starship.
Huh.
Obi-Wan advocates
Still
for
in
him,
one
and
piece.
she reluctantly
I'm
agrees,
surprised you
but
didn't try
insists
to
he hide
blast
in
it open.
Droid World. Over the course of the
Let's see
story,
here.
Jar Jar gradually
The
learns
Fontanian
Padme's
cipher
trust and
disc,
respect. More
metal case from
importantly, he
Liyue.
becomes the bridge between the two
Looks like this
peoples.
was
When the
cobbled
time
together
comes
from
to
spare
defend their home
parts.
from
Although
invaders,
the
it's
inner
Jar Jar
workings
who
are
persuades the
pretty
Gungans to
intricately
join
designed.
forces with the Naboo,
It's a
telling
good thing
them
you didn't
they're
try
like
and brute
us.
force
The
it.
alliance is hard won
Could be a
and carries
tricky
far more
one,
emotional
since it
weight
uses
than
a
the
combination of
relatively shallow
several different
unity depicted in the
technologies.
final
I
film.
could
This
find
version of
out
the story
more by
engages directly with
disassembling
themes
it,
of
but
racism and social
that could
inequality,
potentially
concepts
damage
that had
the
long been part of
contents.
Star Wars lore. As
I'm
early as
assuming
the
it's
second
not
draft
worth
of
the
New
risk,
Hope,
right?
George Lucas
Must be a
explored the idea
pretty
that race
important
wars
message
were
if this is
tools
how
used
they
by the
chose to
founders of
transport
the
it.
Empire to fracture
The
and
only
dominate
other
the galaxy.
option is to get
Here,
our
that
messenger to
subtext
tell
would
us
have
the
been brought
code.
to the forefront. A
Is
later
that
idea
doable?
had Jar Jar
Can you wake
accompanied
her
by a
up?
dog-like pet known as a blarth, named for the low burping sound that it made. But the
Well,
concept
the
was
device
eventually
in her
dropped,
chest looks
likely
pretty
because the
similar
idea
to
of
the
a
core
comic
you'd
relief
find on a
character
Secret
having his
Source
own comic
automaton,
relief sidekick
but the
would be
other
too much,
components,
even for a film
I've
already
never seen
leaning
anything
heavy
like them in
slapstick.
that land
In the
before.
script, Maul was described simply
see
as
what
a
I can
vision
do.
from your worst
Hang tight
nightmare.
for a minute.
Concept artist Ian McKeag took that literally, drawing his worst nightmare, which was that face that's peering in the window at you late at night, like a cross between a ghost and a serial killer. However, when he presented it to Lucas, Lucas recoiled and immediately shut the folder, telling him, "Give me your second worst nightmare." That next version featured circuitry mapped across the face, which eventually evolved into the
All
now
I did was
iconic
stimulate
black
the
and
core.
red tattoos.
I did
An
not
aesthetic
expect
McKeag
that to
admitted
work.
was partly inspired by Rorschach from Watchmen and Bozo the Clown. However, after the final design was approved,
White.
McKeag submitted one last alternate take,
Flying
reimagining
object.
Darth Maul as a woman.
Blonde.
Lucas loved the look,
Traveler.
but rejected it for Maul. Though years
Traveler.
later, that very design would be
Bible.
resurrected as Mother Talzin, Maul's mother in the Clone Wars. Maul was originally meant to be played by a traditional actor
Task
with
in
full dialogue,
progress.
but that changed
Deliver
after
message
stunt
to
coordinator
Traveler
Nick
and
Gillard
White Flying
filmed martial
Companion.
artist Ray Park,
Message
then part of the
location
stunt team,
confirmed.
demonstrating
Status.
lightsaber moves.
Deliver.
Lucas and producer Rick McCallum were so
pretty
impressed they
smart
cast
for
him
a
in the role.
robot.
But because Park's
Can you
voice was
tell
too
us the
high
code
pitched
for
for
the
what Lucas
message?
wanted, he heavily cut Maul's lines
Code?
down and dubbed over what remained with another actor, transforming him from a
not so smart
talkative
after
villain
all.
into a silent, intimidating enforcer.
code?
Lucas also originally envisioned rapper turned actor Tupac Shakur in the role of Mace Windu, seeing him as a rising star with real screen presence. But after Tupac's
Memory.
death in 1996,
Missing.
Lucas turned to Samuel L.
What?
Jackson, who was a lifelong Star
Memory
Wars fan
missing?
and brought a commanding energy to the role. When The Phantom Menace finally hit theaters in 1999,
There's always a
it was a
snag.
landmark in visual
Is there
effects,
anything
pushing
else
the
you do
boundaries of
remember?
digital filmmaking
Besides
and
these
setting a
two?
new industry standard. But while its technical achievements were undeniable, the film faced heavy criticism for its stilted dialogue, flat
Name.
characters, and uneven tone.
Memory
However, had
missing.
Lucas pursued his original plans for the film, the final product might have struck a better balance
again.
between spectacle and
Why
story,
would her
and been
memories
received
be
far more
missing?
favorably by both
Can
fans and
robots
critics
even
alike.
get
Thanks for
amnesia?
watching, everybody, and don't
You said
forget to
something
like and
about
subscribe for
returning
more
home
of
earlier.
Hollywood's untold stories and unmade
Where's home for you?
movies.
Any memories about that?
Return
Hey, I'm saving
home.
big with TD Insurance for being a
Task in
claims-free hybrid
progress.
driving university grad.
Wow, dude. You should have your own jingle.
Memory missing.
Oh, so that's it then. Her memories are gone for good?
Revenge of the
Not
Sith was
necessarily.
originally
Judging by her
radically different
reaction,
and
it's
clocked in at
possible
4
that her
hours.
memory
There would have been no
integrity
high
isn't
ground. The
compromised,
opening battle
just
above
locked behind an
Coruscant would have been
isolation
intercut with
mechanism.
several other battles
Yeah,
on different planets.
what
the
does that
Jedi's
mean
going
for
to
us,
arrest
though?
Palpatine would have put
In
up
words
more of
we
a
can
fight.
understand.
Anakin's turn to the
It
dark
means
side
she
would have been
hasn't lost
motivated
her
by his
memories.
desire to
They're in
save
there
Padme
somewhere.
from
She
dying,
just
and
can't
Qui-Gon
access
Jinn and
them
Han
right now.
Solo would have returned too.
Like,
So why were all of
when
these
you know
things
you know
changed?
something, but
To find
the
out,
harder you try
let's
to
dive in
remember
and
it,
take a
the
look
more
at
it gives
what
you a
could have
headache.
been Revenge of the Sith.
Is that what's
Before
going
we
on?
dive in, a quick shout out to
Finding
this
near
video's sponsor,
synonyms for headache.
CyberGhost VPN,
Cognition
an essential
module.
tool for
Pain.
protecting your digital privacy.
Correct.
Trusted by 38 million users worldwide,
Robots can feel
CyberGhost is one of the
pain, too?
top-rated VPNs on the market, with more than 20,000.
Well, pain can be a useful parameter. Experiencing pain is how baby humans and saurians learn what to do and what not to do. In a similar vein, I've heard that a lot of highly autonomous machines are designed with negative feedback mechanisms for behavioral regulation.
Whoa, slow down.
Could you simplify that for Paimon?
Internet connection and reroutes your traffic through secure
Oh, okay, well, if I call it a curse, is that easier to understand? Imagine if you're a big shot shaman from the Masters of the Nightwind and you send your disciple on an errand to the Flowerfeather clan. To stop him from treating it like a vacation, you might put a curse on him that causes a physical and mental breakdown if he strays from the right path. That way, you can be sure he'll stick to the straight and narrow and won't go frolicking off.
Jeez. Sounds like the horror story version of Granny Eatsley that parents tell their kids about.
A 45-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 support, all when you use the link in the description. It's a powerful way
The point is, manufacturers often hardwire restrictions like this into autonomous machines to make sure they operate as intended.
Yeah, but why would you curse a machine to lose their memories? What purpose could that possibly serve? In her case, all it's done is make it harder for her to complete her tasks.
Task. Failed. Sincere apologies.
Well, without knowing the exact details of the curse, it's anyone's guess. It seems you responded to the phrase return home. How about we keep talking and see if any other keywords trigger something for you?
Even this opening,
sure.
With a montage, 45-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 support, all when you use the link in the description. It's
I'm
a
all
powerful
right.
way to protect your
I have
privacy
assessed the pain
and
level
access
as
content from
tolerable.
around the world. Don't
I
miss
must
out.
complete my
Click the link
task.
below and start
Hey,
browsing
Traveler,
safely with
have you ever seen a
CyberGhost
humanoid
VPN
machine like
today.
this?
Lucas
Anywhere else
originally
you've been?
planned to open the film with a montage of Clone War battles on 7 different planets,
Ah,
but
of
ultimately
course.
decided to keep the
Yeah,
focus
some
on
of her
Anakin
joints and a
at the
few
Battle of
components look
Coruscant.
pretty
However, even
Fontanian to
this
me.
opening, which ended up clocking in
Fontaine.
at just under 25 minutes,
They
was
make
originally
good
an hour
pastries
long.
there.
It would have featured an extended duel with Dooku, in which Anakin blinds him in one eye and narrowly avoids getting his hand chopped off with a nifty drop catch of his lightsaber. Shock T also would have been slain in front of Obi-Wan and Anakin, who then
No.
touch parts of their faces to silently coordinate a plan, highlighting how close they've grown, before escaping by cutting a hole around them in the floor and dropping into a body of water, which they then have to escape. Plus, there would have been more hijinks as Anakin,
You mean
Obi-Wan, and
her
Palpatine
hairpiece?
try to get off the
Oh,
ship.
yeah,
Given
I
the
think
sheer
I know
amount
what
of
you mean.
ground that the movie
What
had
did they
to
call
cover,
them in
Lucas would
Mondstadt
end up
again?
having to cut all of this out for
Mondstadt.
time. One scene filmed,
The
but
maids
ultimately
there are
cut
very
from the final
hardworking.
film featured Bail Organa meeting privately with a small group of senators, including Padme and Senator Mon Mothma. In the scene, Organa reveals that he and Mon Mothma are quietly putting together an
Okay,
organization
that would
to
explain
preserve
a
the
lot of the
Republic,
internal
fearing the
design
unchecked power
choices.
Palpatine
So
is amassing.
you're from
Padme
Mondstadt
and
then?
several others agree to join the cause, planting
No.
the first seeds of what would eventually become the
come she
Rebel
responds so much
Alliance.
faster
Anakin's
when the
reasons
answer
for
is
turning to
no?
the dark side were
Not
originally
Lenny's
very
core,
different, as was the
Fontanian
moment he
joints,
became a
Mondstadt
Sith.
hairpiece.
Initially, Palpatine reveals his true
Maybe
identity
no
to
single
him and
nation
tells
is her
Anakin
own.
that the Jedi are planning a coup to take over the
She's
Republic.
just like the
Instead of running to
Cryptex in
tell
that
Mace
sense.
Windu like
A
in the
mishmash
final
of parts
film,
from all
Windu
of
and the
the
Jedi
world.
would have arrived
In
after
that
learning
case,
of Palpatine's
where
identity
exactly
from
is
Obi-Wan,
home to
who
you?
recognized
Is it
Palpatine
where
when
you
he saw
were built?
Sidious on a Hall.
Where you live most of the
Anakin's
time?
reasons for turning to the dark
Or
side were originally
a place
very
you can always
different,
come
as was
back
the
to?
moment he became a Sith. Initially, Palpatine reveals his
Home
true
is
identity to him and
just
tells
home.
Anakin that the Jedi are
Isn't it?
planning a coup to take over the Republic. Instead of running to tell Mace Windu like in the
Feels like
final
this is
film,
getting us
Windu and the
nowhere.
Jedi would have arrived after
Any
learning
other
of
ideas she
Palpatine's
wanted?
identity from
How do we get
Obi-Wan,
her
who
memories
recognized Palpatine when he saw
If
Sidious
her
on a
cognition
hologram.
is
As
impaired,
the Jedi
maybe
ignite
her
their
body
sabers,
is the place to
Palpatine
look.
grabs
I
Anakin's
found a
lightsaber
lot of
with
interesting
force, and the
things when
fight
I was
begins,
examining her
as
just now.
Anakin observes, staying on the fence. If you look closely in the final film, you can actually
Do you
spot
remember this
Palpatine
little
using
robot?
Anakin's saber in a
Apparently,
few
you were
shots,
together when
a
they found
remnant
you on
of
the
this
beach.
earlier plan. The fight itself was also initially much longer. Rather than being dispatched in seconds, the Jedi would have put up a real fight. Palpatine was also meant to toy with Windu, showing off his superior skill before deliberately throwing the fight to manipulate Anakin's sympathy. Eventually, Anakin intervenes, allowing
So you remember how
Palpatine
to
to
switch
use
it
force
on.
lightning to hurl
Now,
Windu out the
could you
window.
try
Anakin
doing
then
something
collapses
similar
stunned,
to your
not just
right
by what
arm?
he's done, but by the terrifying realization that the Jedi may have been trying to seize power after all, as Palpatine instructs him to
this
go kill the remaining Jedi before
a
they
brew?
retaliate. After screening a rough cut of the film,
really
the
is
biggest
a
note Lucas
robo-maid?
received was that Anakin's turn to the dark
Well,
side was weak.
very good
As a
indeed.
result, Lucas not only
Now
cut out as
then,
many
could
scenes
I,
of other characters
trouble you
as
to
possible
tidy up
in
my
order to keep the
workshop?
focus on Anakin, but also went
Are you
back for
serious
reshoots,
right now?
rewriting key scenes
Well,
to
if
anchor
she's a
Anakin's fall
robo-maid,
in his
maybe
fear of
doing
losing
some household
Padme.
chores
Instead
will
of
jog
political
her memory.
ideology, temptation by the
Yeah,
dark side, or
just,
resentment towards
this
the
area
Jedi,
will do.
Anakin's descent
Thanks,
became a
no need
desperate
to
attempt to save
tidy
the
the
one
whole
he loved.
workshop.
The original duel, however, between Sidious and the Jedi relied heavily on stunt doubles,
This
with
is a
Ian
bit much.
McDermott only appearing in close-ups. But after deciding to
Understood.
reshoot the scene,
Commencing
Lucas wanted
task.
Ian to perform the lightsaber choreography himself to better capture Palpatine's expressions and presence
Sorting
without
large
relying
objects.
on a stunt double.
She's
Ian,
really
though, had
doing
no
it.
sword fighting experience and
Well,
was taught the
guess
choreography
this counts as
right
progress.
before the camera started rolling.
Let's see if it
Because of
leads
that, the
anywhere.
entire duel had to be drastically simplified. The other Jedi were killed off almost instantly, and the fight with Windu was shortened to work around Ian's limitations. Order 66 was originally much longer too. After cutting Shaak Ti's death earlier in the film, Lucas again tried to show her being killed off while she's meditating inside the Jedi Temple. We also would have seen more of the temple under siege and the Jedi being overwhelmed. When Obi-Wan and
Cleaning
Yoda
floor.
finally arrive at the temple, they would have been confronted by a group of clones wearing the robes of fallen Jedi in an attempt to fool them. The ruse fails, and the clones launch a surprise attack, only to be quickly defeated. Afterward, Obi-Wan and Yoda enter the temple and review the security footage of Anakin's famous acts, which originally included him killing the head of security for the Jedi Temple, played by the film's stunt coordinator, Nick Gillard. In an early version of the film, Padme didn't come to Mustafar to just confront Anakin. She came to kill him. Concept art shows her holding a knife as she steps off the ship. Originally, she embraces him and would have pressed the blade to his neck, ready to go through with it, but she can't. Despite everything, she still loves him. Unable to follow through, she lets him go. Then Obi-Wan would have appeared at the top of the ship's ramp before Anakin force chokes Padme, lifting her into the air and slamming her against a wall.
Ultimatum protocol. Defensive mode engaged.
And while the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin was originally
Cleanup sequence
longer, the
initiated.
end would have been radically different. Originally, there was no high ground moment. After swinging on cables, Obi-Wan and Anakin would have landed on the side of the volcano. There, Anakin would have quickly destroyed
Insulation chamber
Obi-Wan and
deployed.
grabbed him by the throat, saying, "Sorry it has to be this way, my master." But as Anakin raises a saber for the finishing blow, Obi-Wan punches him, pulls his own lightsaber back
Sorting
with the
small
force, and in one
objects.
swift motion cuts through Anakin's arms and legs almost by mistake, as Anakin's torso falls off his legs. Lucas, however, insisted on using the
Outlander
high ground,
Brigade.
which stunt
When the wind of
coordinator
death
Nick
blew
Gillard
towards
and
the blonde
Hayden
samurai.
Christensen hated. And while fans would
Clear and
later come to
concise
realize that it
descriptions
was
of
a
physical
callback to
motions, but no
Obi-Wan's duel
plot.
with Maul, the moment could
Category,
have carried more
martial
weight
arts
if we had seen
instruction.
Obi-Wan tell the story
Wait,
of how he defeated
isn't that a
Maul to
light novel
Anakin,
that Steve
making
Lally
Anakin
left here
believe
by
he could
mistake?
succeed
The
where
good thing
Maul
about
failed,
being
only to fall
reincarnated as a
victim to his own
Hilichurl is
hubris.
that I only need to
Additionally,
eat some
after
setias
losing
to
his
become
limbs,
stronger.
Anakin would have pleaded with Obi-Wan
Discusses
for help,
energy
reaching out with his
acquisition from the
remaining arm and
Sunsetia fruit.
crying, "Help me, master." Though this
Category,
line was filmed, the
nutritional
audio was
science.
muted in the final cut, though you can
Maybe
still
I
see
should keep a
Hayden's
closer
lips
eye
saying
on what
the
Napika's
words.
reading.
Obi-Wan, devastated, refuses, saying quietly,
Introduction
"I
of
love
ancient
you, but I can't
machines.
help you." However,
Grammatically
McGregor
elegant
asked
and
Lucas to change
rhetorically
this to the past
sophisticated,
tense,
author
suggesting
displays a high
Obi-Wan
level of
instead say,
linguistic
"I loved
mastery.
you, but I could not help
Category,
you," implying that
classical
the Anakin
literature.
Obi-Wan knows is gone.
What in the
Following this,
world?
Anakin's eyes
That
would have
isn't
changed to
classical
sick yellow.
literature.
Going even further back to Lucas's plans in 1981, however, Padme wasn't even present at the duel and had already given birth to the twins, who were about 6 months old. After the fight, Obi-Wan learns that Vader has survived. Fearing what Vader might do next,
finally
Obi-Wan goes
done.
to Padme and tells her the
Huh?
truth. That Anakin is
Is
the
that
one
a
hunting down
woman
and killing the
scroll
Jedi.
down there?
Knowing how strong the Skywalker bloodline
looks
is
a
in
little
the Force,
dirty.
Obi-Wan suggests they separate and hide the children, believing they
it
may
up?
one day be the key
Understood.
to undoing the damage their
Cleaning
father has
woven
caused.
scroll.
Obi-Wan takes Luke to Tatooine and gives him to a couple living out in the desert, while he retreats to a nearby hideout to keep
Wow.
watch from a
It's like
distance,
it's brand
unable to raise
new.
Luke himself since he's now a wanted man. Padme and
This looks
Leia
like
travel
someone
to
from the Children
Alderaan,
of
where they're taken in
Echoes.
by the king, a close
She
friend of
woman.
Obi-Wan's.
Is this
Not
a
long
relative of
after,
yours?
Padme dies.
Oh,
and Leia
a
is raised by
relative.
her adopted
No.
family,
That's
growing up with the knowledge that her
Ishki,
real
ancient
mother
name
passed away
Baraka,
when she was
founder
very
of the
young.
Children of
This
Echoes
version
and one of the
events would
6
have also
heroes.
avoided the plot hole in Return of the Jedi,
Baraka?
where Leia recalls memories of
Isn't
her
that
mother,
your
despite
ancient
Padme
name too?
dying moments after
Yep,
childbirth.
she
in
was
Revenge
the
of the Sith,
first recorded
which
bearer
Lucas
of that
did to
name.
wrap up Padme's
She and her
storyline
friends
at
went
the
on
end
a
of the
mission
film.
to
In the
defeat the
final
Pyro
film,
Dragon.
Yoda briefly tells
She
Obi-Wan that
dismantled
he's been in
many
contact
ancient
with the
machines
spirit
built
of
by
Qui-Gon
Dragon
Jinn,
kind,
but originally
hoping to
Lucas
put
wrote
them
a
to
full
use
scene
for the
to
good of
depict this
humanity.
moment. After Yoda's
But
defeat at the
most
hands
of
of
her
Darth
research was
Sidious,
lost
he would
to
have entered
history.
in deep meditation, where he hears
real shame.
Qui-Gon's voice speaking
I'm
to him.
sure
Yoda
we'd all
expresses
have
shame
much
over
easier
his
lives
failure.
if we had
Qui-Gon
access
reassures
to
him.
all that
Through a new
tech.
form of training, Qui-Gon learned from a shaman of the wills.
Useful
Yoda
stuff
will
like
learn
that
to merge with the
normally doesn't
Force
just
at
get
will. His
forgotten.
physical form will fade.
Ochcon
His
happened.
consciousness will endure,
An old friend
making
of the
him more
Six
powerful
who ended
than
up
the
ruling
Sith.
Natlan
In a
shortly
quiet,
after the
humbling
war,
moment, Yoda
and went full
accepts his new
tyrant.
role. Not
He
as a
despised
master,
everything
but
to
as
do with
Qui-Gon's new
dragonkind
apprentice.
and
Lucas
persecuted
also shot a
everyone who
scene
showed
showing
any kind
Yoda
of
arrive on
sympathies toward their
Dagobah, but
civilization.
ultimately cut it out to reduce
He even
the
turned on
runtime.
Ishki,
Since Yoda already
one of
states
his
that he was going
closest
to exile
allies.
after losing to Sidious, the
Ultimately,
implication that he's headed to Dagobah
she took her
was
own
clear
life,
enough, and Lucas felt the
bringing a
extra
once
scene
amicable
wasn't necessary
friendship
to make that
to a
connection.
tragic end.
Lucas originally planned for Revenge of the Sith to include much stronger
Ishki
connections
burned
to
her
the
workship
original
to the
trilogy.
ground to make sure
Early drafts
Ochcon couldn't
featured
get
a
her hands on
10-year-old
it.
Han Solo
That's
living
the
among
reason most
Wookiees
of her
on Kashyyyk,
research
helping
is
the
lost to
Republic by
history.
tracking the movements of General Grievous. The role was never cast, and the scene was dropped before filming.
That's right.
Another scrap moment.
One of her
would have seen
friends managed
Palpatine
to
reveal
preserve
to
a small
Anakin
amount of her
that he
work.
created him from
The other person you
midi-chlorians.
see on
It was
that
a
woven
clear
scroll,
callback to Vader's
the same
famous reveal to
person I
Luke in
inherited the
Empire
ancient
Strikes
name
Back,
Buka from.
reframed with Palpatine
It was said
as
that
the
she was
father,
raised
but
by
in
a
the
dragon
end,
mother,
Lucas cut the
then
scene,
went on to
leaving
found the
Anakin's
Flower Feather
origin
clan.
more ambiguous.
The
In the
uncrowned
end,
queen
Revenge
who
of the
brought
Sith was
freedom to
almost
the
a very
weak
different
and to
film.
the persecuted
The original cut
Saurians.
clocked in at 4 hours,
Bianca.
filled with darker storylines, expanded subplots that fleshed out characters like Padme and Bail Organa, and featured more direct ties to the original trilogy. But Lucas chose to trim it down to keep the focus squarely on Anakin's fall. Anything that didn't directly serve his transformation into Darth Vader was either shortened or cut entirely. What remains is still the most emotionally powerful of the prequels, but the original 4-hour version shows just how much more layered and tragic Anakin's story was originally meant to be. Don't forget to click the link in the description to get the special discount CyberGhost VPN is granting to our channel users. This application will protect your data while you browse and give you full access to all block content on the internet for $2.03 a month. Totally. The Force Awakens was almost a radically different movie, featuring Darth Maul's triumphant return as the main villain, Darth Talon as his deadly apprentice, Luke Skywalker taking center stage for much of the story, and the death of Poe Dameron. So let's dive in and take a look at what happened behind the scenes to arrive at the movie we got, and also take a look at what could have been Star Wars The Force Awakens. In a 1983 interview, Mark Hamill shared that George Lucas asked him if he'd be open to playing an older, Obi-Wan-like version of Luke Skywalker.
If there was a lightning storm, I'd have thrown you into the sky by now. Ethan mentioned that you'd brought a humanoid machine to the Children of Echoes. I'm working a job at the moment.
Later, in 2012, Lucas invited Hamill and Carrie
Humanoid machine.
to tell them he was handing over control
Looks
of
like a
Lucasfilm
maid.
to Kathleen Kennedy.
Highly
oversee
destructive.
production of episodes 7, 8,
Yeah,
and 9. After
this
his
is my
plans
target,
for a
all right.
Star Wars TV series called Underworld fell through. Lucas informed Hamill and Fisher that he wouldn't be directing the films, but assured them
A
that
group
while
of
he wanted
merchants
them
tasked me
involved,
with
their
locating
roles
their
wouldn't
missing
be
travel
recast if
companion.
They declined. Instead, their characters would simply be written out. Fisher immediately agreed.
What
but
did you
Hamill
think I was
hesitated,
about to
as
do?
he was skeptical that
Not
they could
every job I
recapture
take
the
on is a
magic
hunt,
of the
you know.
original trilogy, and doubted Harrison Ford, who had openly expressed his disdain for Han Solo over the years, would return. Not only that, but Hamill felt the story had been told, saying there was a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they all lived happily ever after, and that's the way it should be. Hamill would leave the meeting telling Lucas he'd think about it. However, he was stunned to later learn that Disney had purchased Lucasfilm, and that Harrison Ford had agreed to return to the role that made him famous, contingent on a huge payday, and Disney's promise to produce another Indiana Jones film, which was part of the sale to Disney. Feeling a sense of obligation and worried that fans would never forgive him if he passed, Hamill agreed to return as Luke Skywalker against his better judgment. Part of the sale to Disney included Lucas' story treatments for episodes 7, 8, and 9, and while some of his ideas would make it into the Disney versions of the films, other ideas would be ignored entirely.
Your memory's gone
Similar to
again.
how the original trilogy
your
was
name
influenced
this
by
time?
Lucas' strong opposition to the Vietnam War, with the Empire
Again?
representing America and the rebels representing
Leo,
Vietnam, the sequels would have
Fontaine,
drawn inspiration from the
Sumerian.
aftermath of the
This
Iraq
is quite a
War.
diverse
As the New
group.
Republic attempts to
So,
assert control
are you
following
her
the fall of the Empire, the
manufacturers
films would have
or,
explored the challenges
family?
of post-war reconstruction.
No
while the
way.
galaxy struggles
None
with
of us have
chaos
that
and
kind of skill.
lawlessness. The
She's
stormtroopers
Ina's
would have been like
handiwork.
Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist
Ina?
fighters that joined ISIS and kept on fighting, and they would refuse to give up when the Republic won. Darth Maul, however, would have returned to rally these fractured remnants of the Empire, while uniting the criminal underworld against the New Republic, with the core of the conflict being the New Republic trying to get the galaxy under control from Maul and his gangsters. Considering Maul would have been old and relying on metal legs to walk, he would have left the fighting to his new apprentice Darth Talon, who would go on to literally seduce Han and Leia's son Skylar to the dark side, with Episode 7
Looks
focusing
like she's
on his
getting
fall.
worse.
For his part, Luke Skywalker
this
would have
all
been trying
our
to restart the
fault?
Jedi from scratch. But after Skylar betrays him, Luke would have gone into self-imposed exile, which Luke is based on Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. It's important to note that this was Lucas's idea,
So
and it
sorry.
predated both
I should
J.J.
have introduced
Abrams and Rian
myself.
Johnson.
My
to
name's
the board.
Joaquin,
A young
and I'm a
female
merchant.
character who Lucas
This is
named
my wife
Thea
and daughter,
seeks out Luke Skywalker
and
with
the
the
rest
help
are friends
Han
of the
Solo
family.
to learn the ways of
We're
the
all
Force
from
after her
Nodcry.
home is destroyed by Darth Talon.
Nodcry?
Leia would have been the one trying to rebuild the Republic as they try to get it
Wouldn't
under
have been my
control
first
from Maul
guess.
and his gangsters. By the end of the
How'd you all
trilogy,
meet
she would
That's
have
the thing
reformed
about
the Republic
Nodcry.
and become the
It
supreme
kind of brings
chancellor in
together
charge
the
of everything,
drifters.
while Luke
Yeah.
would have trained her in the
We're
ways
all
of the
merchants
Force
who ended
before
up
dying in
finding our
Episode
feet in
9,
Nasha
after
Tower.
having rebuilt Rise of the
Nodcry.
Jedi, with Leia
It was
being
going
revealed as the
okay until
actual
all the
chosen
trouble
one.
started.
Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy
Trouble?
would hire Michael Arndt, who won an Oscar for Little Miss Sunshine, to write the
Fatui.
entire sequel
came down
trilogy,
from the
not
north.
just Episode 7.
They've
Only
made
worked
some
with
big
Lucas
moves
to
in
realize his
Nodcry
vision.
lately.
Once Disney
It's
purchased
caused quite a bit of
Lucasfilm, they
friction
decided
with the
they didn't
local
wanna go in
religious
that
groups.
direction. So the mandate was to start from scratch, even though many of
That's
George's ideas
one way to
evolved
put
and found
it.
their way into the final
You know what I
For
heard?
example, Darth Maul would
They
morph into a new
pulled the
character
whole
named
moon
Uber,
down.
before morphing again into
That,
Snoke.
plus
Darth
the
Talon
incident with the
would have
moon
been a Jedi
statues.
Hunter, and Han and
Surely
Leia's
the
son
Frost
would merge
Moon
into one
Scions aren't going to
character,
take all
Kylo
this
Ren,
lying
with his
down.
fall to the dark side happening off screen
Anyway,
before
there
Episode
us
7,
regular
instead
folks
of during
were
the film like
just trying to
Lucas
make a
had
steady
planned.
living
George's
while
vision
getting
was always about a
increasingly
young
worried that
woman
it's
on a
going to
quest to
turn
become a
ugly.
Jedi Knight. From the
In
beginning,
the end,
Arndt wanted her
we
to be a
figured heading
scavenger
back
and
to our
loner.
respective
He saw
homes
her
is
as a
probably
hothead,
the best thing
gear-headed
for now.
badass, and the
So we
ultimate
decided to make
outsider
the
and
journey
disenfranchised
together.
person, because that person has the
me?
longest journey. Originally, Arndt had Rey's home destroyed before she goes
Your
on the road
case
to
is,
Luke, where she's trained by the
a little
Jedi
different.
Master before confronting
But you
the
did
bad
come
guy.
here on the
But
same
Arndt
boat
felt
as
that every
us.
time Luke entered the
And it
movie,
was
he just
smooth
took
sailing
it over, and suddenly
until we
he
got
didn't care
attacked
about
by
Rey
those
anymore.
weird
As
machines
a
we
result,
were
they
coming
decided
to
to make
shore.
Luke himself
Weird
the MacGuffin
machines?
and save him for the end of the
Secret
film.
Source
Mark Hamill would be
automatons by any
devastated to
chance?
learn that he was basically
And
cut out
Neffa
of the
saved
movie,
us
and worried
all.
that Luke's
She
big reveal
jumped
at
off
the
the
end
ship
of the movie
and
would
told
fall
us to
flat
leave without
and
her.
potentially reek as a cheap gimmick. However, some of the early MacGuffins
Really?
for the movie were a search for
I
Darth
did
Vader's
that?
remains, since Kylo wanted to take on the persona of Vader in order
As
to haunt
soon as
Luke
we'd
and
found
seek
another
revenge
place to
over his
dock,
former
we
master
looked
wounding
around
him
for
after
someone to
Kylo
help
betrayed
us.
him, as well as a
We'd have
quest to
paid
the underwater
anything to
wreckage
get
of
her
the second
back.
Death Star to recover
Hence
a piece
why our
of
price
history about
negotiation
sacred
went so
Jedi sites in the
smoothly.
galaxy. In this
However,
version, the end of the film
the
would have seen
Traveler
Rey
and
find
party
a
were the
hidden
ones who
map inside the
actually saved
Emperor's
Neffa.
tower of the second Death Star,
And
which tells her
Shallonen is the
location
one
of
who
the
woke
first
her
Jedi
up.
temple where Luke is
I'll
hiding.
have to include
Obviously,
their
some of
costs
these
in the
ideas
final
would be
bill.
repurposed for
Oh,
Episode 9.
please. I
Arndt
barely
also
did
allegedly
anything.
developed a
All
plot
credit
point
to
of having
Neffa.
Leia's
She
true
only woke
parentage
up because of her
revealed to the
build
Senate,
quality,
destroying
so
her
I
political
guess
credibility
I should
and
say
undermining her
all
nomination
credit
for
to this.
first senator.
I know,
Han Solo
Ben.
dying was also something that
Her
was pitched to
core
Harrison
is
Ford by
remarkably
Lucas
resilient.
on, but was a
It's
plot
a rare
point that remained
find,
in
even
flux.
among
Arndt had
Nowlan's
thought that the
source
Han and Leia
mechanisms.
story was just about
Was
them
Ina
coming
the
back
one who
together
modified
after
it?
separating between episodes 6 and 7. And at the end of the movie, they would have reconciled and got over their differences. It wasn't until J.J. Abrams came aboard as director that he felt Tom was
I'm
really
afraid that's
pushing
not
the
going to
story
work.
forward and
The
suggested that
core
Kylo
is most
kill him,
likely
which
just
is what
something
Lawrence
I know
Kasdan wanted
picked
to
up
do all
on
the
one
way
of her
back in
scavenger
Return of the
hunts.
Jedi. The
I
male
doubt
lead
she
was
did much
also a
beyond
character Arndt
salvaging
struggled
it.
to figure out. At one point, Arndt
And as
considered
for the
making him a
memory thing,
pirate and a merchant
and Neffa's
marine.
whole
Lucas
reason
saw
for
him as
joining
someone
us on
with
our
pure
journey was to
charisma.
come to
Early
Natlan
concept
and look
art
for
not
her
only
missing
shows him as
memories.
white, but also heavily
Please,
influenced by Han
explain
Solo.
in more
It would be
detail.
Lawrence Kasdan who would eventually suggest making him a former stormtrooper.
All right.
However, Arndt struggled to
Although I've
complete
lost
the
count of
script,
how many
and
times
after
we've been
Lucas's
through
story
this,
treatments were set
and
aside,
I'm only telling
a
you
writer's
what you
room was
originally
established
told
that
me.
included Arndt, Kiri Hart,
Although
Lawrence
I know built
Kasdan, who
you,
wrote
she
Empire
never
Jedi,
could figure out
Kathleen
where
Kennedy,
your
and
core
Simon
came from
Kinberg.
or
According
how
to
it
Kasdan, the
works.
sessions went on on
The
for
only thing she
months,
was fairly
with
sure
little
of
progress
was
as they
that
struggled
it's
to
not
crack
from
the story.
Nodcry.
Eager to get the project back
Things
on
were fine
track,
at the start.
Kennedy looked to hire a
You'd
director.
occasionally
The
forget to
Incredibles'
pay for
Brad
your
Bird was
groceries
reportedly
or
a top
add
choice,
salt
but he
to
was
a
busy
dish you were
directing
cooking.
Tomorrowland. Joss
But that
Whedon,
was as bad
who
as
had
it
just directed
got.
The Avengers, was very
Until
eager to
one
do
day,
it, but was
you were
contracted
sweeping the
to do
floor,
Age of Ultron,
and suddenly
leading
you
to what
forgot
he
your own
called a moment
strength.
of rue. Eventually,
Nearly
J.J.
took the
Abrams
entire
would be
wall
hired at
down.
Steven Spielberg's suggestion. Abrams was already known for his signature mystery box storytelling approach, a technique where he thrust the audience into an unfolding mystery to ignite their curiosity and drive the narrative
The worst
forward.
part of
This
that was,
approach drives the
Aneffa had
audience's
completely
desire for
forgotten that
answers to the
Aino was on the
mysteries
other side of
presented,
that
while generating
wall.
intrigue and providing writers with numerous narrative threads to develop.
Aino was
However,
fine,
Abrams
of course,
also had a
didn't bat
reputation
an
for
eyelid,
leaving many of these
but since
questions
then,
unanswered
Aneffa has
or
been searching
resolving
for a
them
way
in
to try and
unsatisfying
repair
ways,
herself.
largely because he often didn't have the answers
Anyway,
when the mysteries
a
were
bunch
first
of
brought up.
mechanical
A
parts
prime
from
example
Natlan
is the
showed up
TV
in
show
Nodcry
Lost, which he
recently,
co-created,
and
where
you
many of the
noticed
island's
they bore some
mysteries were devised on
similarities
the
to your
fly,
core.
with explanations only conceived near
Then
the
you learned
series'
that a group
end.
of us were planning to
Similarly, in
return
Mission
home,
Impossible 3,
stopping
the
off in
Rabbit's Wood
Natlan on the
remains a
way,
vague MacGuffin,
so you
with
tracked
its
us down
purpose
and joined the
nature
crew.
never fully explained. When Abrams
Well,
officially signed
does
on to
any of
direct
that jog
Episode
your
7,
memory?
Arndt had been working on the script for
No.
several months, but said he needed 18 more, which was more time than Disney was willing to give him. From Disney's perspective, they had just purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion.
No,
and their
when we first set off, she'd have the occasional memory lapse,
when Abrams
but it only lasted a moment. Didn't really affect anything.
So that they could have more time to work on
I seriously doubt Ino would have let her come on this trip if it had been that bad.
Also met with
But
Lucas
then,
to discuss their
the closer we got to
Natlan, but as they
Natlan,
began to
the
describe
worse her symptoms got.
Lucas immediately got upset.
She was
as it
already in
dawned
a
on him
pretty
that they
bad
weren't sticking
state by
to
the
story
time she went to
treatments,
fend off
resulting in
those
Lucas
machine things.
distancing himself from
And
the creative
now,
process. And with Michael
I
Arndt
wonder
unable
if
to move
that
any
battle just
faster,
made
the
things
decision was made
worse.
to let him go, so that Abrams and
Poor
Kasdan could take
Inefa.
over and pump out a script
My
as fast as
friends,
possible
I
to meet
know
Disney's
we've
release
only
date.
just
However,
arrived
their
in that
original
land,
version of the
but from
script
what
also
I've
had
heard,
several key
you're
differences
some of
to the
this
finished
nation's
film.
top
For starters,
talents.
the opening of the film
Is
was
there
completely different.
anything
Originally,
you
the
can
film
do to
mirrored the
cure
opening
her?
of episode 4
Anything
with
at
a
all?
massive Star Destroyer flying overhead, only for it to be revealed that it's being towed before being
Perhaps
dropped into the
coming
atmosphere
to
gently as
Natlan
scrap.
was a
Jakku
bad idea
also wasn't a
after
desert
all.
planet like Tatooine,
Well,
but just a
it's too
planet
early to
used for
say.
Imperial scrap.
Don't forget
Another
that
version of
before
this
I was
opening that
interrupted by you
considered
guys,
featured
I'd
Luke's
just
severed
started my
hand
deep dive
clutching
into
his iconic
researching the secret
lightsaber
source of
floating
Taum
through
Tauns.
space before it
My
enters
job
Jakku's
isn't done yet either.
atmosphere as Luke's hand burns
You
up.
wanted your
However, the
travel
lightsaber
companion
would
back,
survive
safe and
and
sound.
fall to the planet below, where
I
it would
still
be
have work to
picked
do.
up by an
So,
scrap. Jakku
why don't
also
you all
wasn't
stick
a
around
desert
here in
planet like
Natlan a little
Tatooine,
longer?
but just a planet
Your
used
ship
for
got
Imperial
attacked.
scrap.
And
Another
since
version
then,
of this opening
you've been
that was
scrambling to
considered
try and
featured
find your
Luke's
missing
severed
crew
hand
member.
clutching his iconic
Sounds like you need some time to catch your breath.
before it enters Jakku's atmosphere as
I was
Luke's
just
hand burns
thinking,
up. However,
we
the
could do with a
lightsaber would
breather.
survive and fall
But
to the planet below,
where would we
it would have been
stay?
picked up by an alien
How about the
hand,
flower feather
possibly
clan?
Naz's. It's also
In my
rumored
tribe,
that Rey would have come into
weary
possession of the
travelers are
lightsaber
always
much
welcome.
earlier in the film and
Flower
sought out Han
feather
Solo to help her
clan.
find Luke and return
In
it
the
to him.
meantime,
Ray and Finn would have
we'll
found
try to
Solo
find
as a
whatever
down and out
information
drunk
we
in a
can
bar,
about Inefa.
separated from Leia. As for
After
Maz,
all,
originally she was
she has a
supposed to
message
follow
for our
everyone to the
Tumaini.
Resistance base,
So
but
this is
Abrams
as much
cut her
our
out of the
business
third
as it
act
is
because he thought
yours.
she didn't do anything useful except sit around. This is the
honest,
same
like we
reason
forgot
Lucas
all
killed off
about that.
Obi-Wan in episode 4,
You guys
because he
don't
originally
happen
did
to know
nothing
the
in the third
code,
act but
do
sit
you?
around the Rebel base
Oh,
during the Death Star
the code for the
break run.
cryptex.
Poe Dameron was originally
Sorry,
envisioned as a minor
Inefa wouldn't tell us
character who would
anything
only
about
have
that.
appeared in the first act, ultimately dying during the TIE
gotta
fighter
wonder
crash
what
on
sort of a
Jakku, which
person
Finn
sends a
survives.
robot
His
with
character went through
amnesia to
numerous
deliver their
iterations, too. At
messages.
one point, he was a Jedi,
To be
and he
fair,
was a
they
bounty
couldn't have
hunter with a
known
lucky
things would get
sidekick
this
before
bad.
finally being turned into a
Also,
pilot. Poe was
Inefa
also
told me
originally
she had a
envisioned as black,
backup plan
while
to
Finn
make
was
sure she
envisioned
wouldn't
as white.
forget the
After
code.
Abrams cast Oscar
backup
Isaac, he
plan?
liked the actor so
Hooray!
much that he
So
decided
what
not
is
to
it?
kill him off and make him the
Backup
third
plan.
lead of the film, echoing the trio
Memory
of Han, Luke,
missing.
and Leia from the original trilogy. And while it was Spielberg who suggested Abrams for the job, he's also the one who suggested Abrams add a jump scare explosion after the TIE fighter sucked into
Well,
the sand.
as long as we get her
also
memories
suggested
back,
that trees should be
that'll
falling
solve
during the
everything,
lightsaber
right?
duel between Kylo and Rey.
Oh, yeah,
However,
yeah,
it was
okay,
Selma
'cause it's
director
that
Ava
simple.
DuVernay who
Wait,
suggested
you
that
do
Rey should
realize I
pause
can't
for a
promise
moment,
anything,
close her eyes,
don't you?
and think back to what she learned
I do.
from Maz as she lets the
I
Force
also
come
know
to
that
her.
every time you
Originally,
say that,
Rey just
you
calls
end up
Kylo
getting the job
monster
done.
before pushing back.
I'm gonna
This
get in
moment of
touch with some other people who
self-reflection not only
might be
connected
able to
with the
help
title
us.
of the film, The Force
Tumaini?
Awakens, but
Bye,
ended up
Ma.
being the turning point in the
See you
duel.
around.
One idea that
Bye,
never made it
kiddies.
into the final film
Oh,
was a resistance
and
super weapon called the
bye,
Warhammer
Hal.
that would have been several times the
Actually,
size of a Star
that's
Destroyer
weird.
and took the form of a massive
Why is
ship
Hal
with a
so
huge front that
quiet
could
today?
penetrate a planetary shield and then deploy ships through it. The Resistance would have used this weapon, which went through several different designs, during the attack on Starkiller Base. Snoke at one point was envisioned as
You're
a
being
female, as
very
Abrams had reservations
strange
about
today.
making the character old and decrepit like the Emperor, even
am
though
I?
he'd ultimately go
Tell
in
me
that
one
direction.
strange
When
thing
Ryan
I've
Johnson
said.
elected to kill the character off in Last Jedi,
That's
Abrams
the
apparently
strange
laughed
part.
when he first read that
You
scene in
haven't
the script.
protested to
Early
anything
drafts of
I've
the
done
film
today.
which went through
Not the
several
original
different
price for the
designs
job,
during the attack on Starkiller
not the revised
Base. Snoke at
timeline,
one point
none
was
of it.
envisioned as a female, as Abrams had
That's
reservations
because-
about making the character old and
Because
decrepit
I
like the
fainted
Emperor,
from your
even though he'd
stupidity.
ultimately go in that
You
direction.
stupefied me
When
into
Ryan
a
Johnson
stupor.
elected to kill the
Got it.
character off in Last Jedi, Abrams apparently laughed when he first read that scene in in the script. Early drafts of the film would have clarified why a group like the Resistance existed despite the re-establishment of the Republic. It would have been revealed that the New Republic had significantly reduced its military strength, leaving the Empire no longer posed a threat. However, when Leia's warnings about the growing threat of the remnants of the Empire went unheeded, she formed the Resistance to monitor and counter the rising threat of the First Order. Captain Phasma grew out of a rejected design for Kylo Ren when he was seen as the lone stormtroopers in bright shining silver armor. Originally, though, the character was male, with Benedict Cumberbatch eyed for the part. However, after some backlash online over how few women were in the cast, Abrams and Kasdan decided to switch Phasma's gender to female to help balance things out. The ending to the film was also slightly changed, as it originally originally featured Rey finding Luke meditating while lifting rocks with the Force. However, Rian Johnson requested that the rocks be removed to align with his script for The Last Jedi, which saw Luke disconnected from the Force. When The Force Awakens was finally released, Lucas didn't hide his disappointment, saying Disney wanted to do a retro movie and there was nothing new in it. He would go on to say that with each movie he worked hard to make them different, with new planets and spaceships, and that there weren't enough visual or technical leaps forward in The Force Awakens. And that's a shame, because before Lucas sold Lucasfilm to Disney, he was planning an ambitious television series called Underworld that would have pushed not only the Star Wars universe forward, but filmmaking technology as well. Ultimately, it would never happen, and the scripts to this series would not only form part of the sale to Disney,
Do you
but
think
be
Aneva
funded,
will like
with many
this
of their
gift we got
ideas
her?
showing up in Disney's movies and shows, just like with The Force Awakens, which, while not exactly following Lucas's sequel trilogy treatments, still used many of his ideas. And if you'd like to see our video on Star Wars Underworld, well, that would have been like, click the link on the end screen coming right up. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Bullets and Blockbusters for more great content.
Hey, you hear that? That's the answer it gave when
The
I
Matt
asked who'd
Lancer
win in a fight
performance
between
was
Kakuku
really
and a Hal. You
Very
guys,
emotional scene
it's just
where
making
he
random
sees
beeps.
Anakin is talking to his dead mother.
Whoa!
And
Is that Hermione and the
and he
flying
says to
expert?
her, I have a wife, and I want you to meet her.
Yes,
Matt
it's
performed
us.
it very emotionally and
Anyway,
really very, very well.
Where's Aneva?
And we were about to
Probably out
move on,
mopping
and
up
I'm
those
still the new
mad
guy in the
machines
room.
as
So
usual.
I raised my hand.
There must be a
and
lot
Dave's
of
like,
them,
and we're
because she
about to move
hardly
on. I
ever
said,
comes back for a rest.
You gotta do that again. And he goes,
All by
"Well,
herself? Are we
What's
sure
the
that's
new
a
guy
good
saying
idea
now?
after what happened last time?
Why? And I said, because Padme already met.
Aneva said that
Shmi.
since she lost her
Yeah,
memories,
yeah.
her cognition module's
so-
been
and
running
I
more
saw Dave
smoothly, and it's
kind of
greatly boosted
take his hat.
efficiency in cleaning and tidying
And I
tasks.
just remember looking over at Ashley,
I
and
think
Ashley
that
goes,
was it.
I've never seen someone out-geek Dave Filoni before.
Losing her
And I
memories
think
has somehow made
that
her a
was
better
when
fighter?
Dave was thinking,
She's
maybe
awesome.
we keep this guy
I saw
around.
her carrying a whole pile
That's my
of beaten
theory.
up machines
Matt
in one
Lancer
hand.
performs this
All
really
the grown-ups say
very
that they
emotional
feel
scene where
much
he
safer
sees
leaving the house
Anakin
now,
is talking
thanks
to his
to her.
dead mother.
So
And
we thought it'd be
Shmi,
nice
and
to
he says
give her a little
I
gift.
have a wife, and
We've
I
tried
want you to
giving
meet
her
her.
flowers and
Matt
feathers,
performed it very
but it
emotionally
seemed
and
like
really
she
very,
didn't
very
like
well.
them very much.
And we were about to
That
move
got
on,
us
and I'm still the new guy in the room.
Maybe
So I
robot
raised my
people
hand,
don't
and
like the
Dave's like,
same
"We're
things
about
as
to move
us.
on." And I said, you gotta do that
So
again. And he goes,
that's why you made her this flower
What's
out
the
of
new guy saying
mechanical
now?
parts.
Why?
Yeah.
And I said,
We still
because
don't know if she'll like
Padme
it, though.
already met Shmi.
Yeah, they had
It's
dinner.
okay,
They had
Adlita.
food.
She'll love
And
this
so,
one.
and I
I'm
saw
sure
Dave
of it. But
kind of
what if she doesn't?
take his hat.
This might be my last
and,
chance.
And I just remember looking over at Ashley, and Ashley goes, I've never seen someone out-geek Dave Filoni before. And I think
Well,
that was
now
when
that all of my
Dave
mom
was
and dad's
thinking,
other friends
maybe
from
we keep
Not
this
Cry
guy
have
around
left
a
to
bit.
go home,
That's my
it's just
theory.
us left.
Matt Lancer
And they said
performs
today
this really
it's our turn to go
He's
home too.
perfectionist.
Already?
As almost
Wasn't the plan to
everyone
stick
we
around until
discuss would
Aneva gets
fall
better?
into that personality
Dad says everyone back
characteristic
home is
there,
expecting us.
Jack
and he
Nicholson
doesn't want
has
us
never
to
been one to
overstay our
hold back.
welcome here.
With a killer smile and eyes that
We
hide
thought
a
we
hint
should
of
at least
beautiful
make sure
madness, he's
Aneva
lived his
wasn't
life and
getting
built his
any
career
worse
on a
first.
foundation of brutal
But now
honesty.
that it's been
And
a
now,
few
at
days,
88, with the
he
Hollywood
says
Hills
it's
in his
time we
rearview
made a
mirror, he's
move.
apparently naming
To be
names.
honest,
The 6 actors, he
I can
says, made his
kinda
life on set
understand.
a living hell.
He
Some are
hasn't been
legends,
home in
some
so
are enemies.
many
All of
years.
them are unforgettable.
Mom and I
Jack
can
Nicholson.
tell that
The
he
name
misses
itself is an
Leeway a
institution,
lot.
an icon of Hollywood's golden age and its
wonder.
rebellious new wave. From One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to The Shining,
Guessing
Chinatown
she's
to
not from
Batman,
Leeway.
he hasn't just starred in movies. He's shaped
No,
film history
she's
like
from
few
Not
others.
Cry.
His characters
She
are
met my
seared
dad
into our
after he
collective
moves
memory.
there.
But
I
even
was going
legends
there
have their
too.
limits. Even gods have their pet peeves. And now, in what's being called his final, most candid reflection,
been there the
Jack is
whole
making
time
it
I was
clear there
growing
are
up,
6 actors he
so
couldn't stand
hasn't
working
been
with.
home in
Actors he
at
says were
least 10
toxic,
years.
manipulative, indulgent, and in some cases, even dangerous to the creative process. Who are they? What really went down behind the scenes of some of cinema's greatest films? And what does Nicholson's legendary perspective reveal now, decades later, about the price of genius and the art of truth? Let's dive into the untold stories and the unfiltered
When she's all
opinions from one of
better,
Hollywood's
we'll bring
greatest
her to
and most
visit you and
brutally
be there.
honest voices. Before we get to the names
don't
on
worry
Jack's
too much
alleged
about the
list,
flower.
let's talk about the
I'm
man
sure
himself.
she'll love
To
it.
understand why these
But
6
even
people
if
got
not,
under
you'll
his
have
skin,
other
you have
chances
to
in the
understand the
future.
code he lives by. He's intense, magnetic, and fiercely protective of his craft.
Imagine being able to build anything.
Although,
For any
I guess
reason,
we still need to
in
wait
any
till
style,
she gets back.
at any
I
scale,
wonder how much longer she'll
just
be.
by thinking about it.
Who knows? Seems like
Meet
she takes
Base
longer
44,
and longer every
a
time she
complete
goes
AI
out.
creation platform
Can't we go take
made
it
for
to
anyone
her?
with an idea
No, wait.
and a drive
the
to
grown-ups
bring
would
it to
never let
life.
us do that. Way too many
Describe
of
what
those
you
mad
want
machines out
and
there.
watch it take shape.
What
You
am
can
I
plan,
gonna do?
customize,
If she
and
doesn't
expand
get back soon,
in any
I
direction.
might run out of time.
From tools built for one to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch.
Born in Neptune City, New Jersey, Nicholson was a man who had to invent himself. He arrived in Hollywood in the 1950s, a rebel without a cause, and fell in with the iconoclasts. He studied under the legendary acting coach Sanford Meisner, who preached a simple but profound gospel. Acting is living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. For Jack, this wasn't just a technique. It became his religion. Truth, no matter how ugly or uncomfortable, was the only thing that mattered. His breakout role in 1969's Easy Rider cemented this persona. He wasn't just an actor. He was a symbol of the counterculture, a voice for a generation tired of phoniness. That disdain for anything fake or performative became the bedrock of his professional life. Directors from Milos Forman to Stanley Kubrick have spoken of his unparalleled commitment. He didn't just play a role. He crawled inside its skin and hijacked its nervous system. He famously stayed in character for long stretches on the set of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, refusing to speak to the director for weeks to authentically portray Randall McMurphy's rebellious spirit. For The Shining, he wrote pages of his own mad ramblings to get into the mind of Jack Torrance.
This wasn't just method indulgence, it was a sacred commitment to the work, and it forged his ironclad code. Show up, be prepared, tell the truth, and bring something dangerous and alive to the table. Don't waste his time with ego, with laziness, or with a performance you cooked up in front of your bathroom mirror. Bring your A-game, your whole soul, or don't show up at all. And when that code was broken, let's just say he never, ever forgot. The first name on Jack's list is perhaps the most painful.
Annihilation mode
It's the man who was his
disengaged.
hero, the god of modern
Chat
acting,
mode
and
activated.
ultimately his greatest
Chat
professional
mode, huh?
disappointment, Marlon Brando.
You'd
Nicholson
probably get
idolized
along
Marlon
well with
Brando.
a
For Jack and
Valkyrian
every other
magician
serious
friend of
actor of
ours.
his generation,
She
Brando
does
was the
modes instead
messiah.
of
His
moves,
raw, vulnerable, and
Good
explosive
morning.
performances in
Nice
A
to
Streetcar
see you
Named
again.
Desire and On the Waterfront
lovely weather
tore
we're
up the
having.
rulebook and created a new language of acting. So when Nicholson got the chance to co-star with
you
his
start
idol in the
too.
1976
One robot's
Western The
enough.
Missouri Breaks, it
These
should
are
have been the
some standard
fulfillment of a
greetings I
lifelong
learned
dream.
recently.
The meeting of
3
two
greetings in a
acting
row equals
titans under
thrice
the
the
direction of
agreement.
Arthur Penn. The
Hypothetically
expectations
speaking.
were stratospheric, but working with Brando was a different
did you
story
get agreement
entirely.
from?
The genius Nicholson had worshipped on screen was, in person,
You're
a
doing a
ghost,
whole lot
a
better
shadow
than the
of his
last time
former
we met.
self, consumed by a
Yes.
bizarre and frustrating
cognition
apathy.
and language
Nicholson
modules
arrived
are
on set
recovering
every
well.
day, lines
I can now
memorized,
sustain
ready to
fluent
spar with
conversation.
his hero. But Brando, he
I
soon
have still
discovered,
been
wasn't
unable
playing
to
the same
retrieve the
game.
memory
He never knew his
containing the code to
lines.
the crypt.
Not once,
Yes.
Jack
Now
reportedly
that a
said.
convenient
The man
moment to
invented the
change the
modern
topic
art
has
of screen
presented
acting,
itself.
and he's got cue cards taped to every
What is
damn
that
lamp,
object in your
every other
hand?
actor's forehead.
A new
He'd read a
model
line
of
off a
source
prop banana
mechanism?
if you let him. It was a joke. He was a genius, but a lazy one. And in my book, lazy
Flower.
genius is just a fancy
Flowers
word
are plant
for
reproductive
fraud.
organs.
Brando's behavior became
But
legendary.
I
He was paid a
detect no
fortune,
signs
showed
of
up
life.
overweight, and made increasingly bizarre character choices that seemed designed to amuse himself and no one else. He adopted a strange lilting Irish accent and wore bonnets and dresses on screen.
Understood.
Decisions that baffled the
A
director
flower-shaped
and his
machine
co-stars.
component.
For Nicholson, this wasn't
What is
eccentric
its
artistry,
function?
it was a profound
Which
act of
module is it designed
disrespect to
for?
everyone who had shown up to do the work.
Is it
There's a fine
compatible with
line
my
between
hardware?
genius and indulgence, and Brando danced on it
doesn't have
every
a
day,
function.
usually with his back to the camera so he could read his lines.
looking at,
I came to work to create something, to find some truth out there in the dirt. He came to work to entertain himself.
Cute
It wasn't a
little
performance, it was a
souvenir.
private party, and the rest of
But
us
if it
weren't
serves
invited.
decrypt
It broke my
texts for
heart a
sending
little, to
messages,
see your hero
machines
become
are
a
for
parody of
performing
himself.
tasks.
The film was a notorious
What about this
flop,
flower?
and though Nicholson always
it
spoke
for?
with reverence for Brando's early work, he swore he would never
Gratitude?
share a set with him again. It wasn't worth the chaos, he allegedly
someone helps you
concluded.
out,
The
you help
lesson
them
was
back.
brutal.
And if
Never
someone gives you a
meet your
gift,
heroes,
you get them something in
especially when
return.
they've stopped
That's how we
being
show
heroic.
gratitude
The
to other
second name
people.
is a more complex
The
and
flower
tragic
feather
one,
clan
a
took me
relationship
in, so
Nicholson
I'm neutralizing
himself
threats
has
near their
described as a
territory.
casualty
Like
of
that?
a brutal creative war. Shelley Duvall. Their battleground was the Overlook Hotel, the setting for Stanley Kubrick's
But
1980 horror
is this not
masterpiece, The
tit for
Shining.
tat?
Technically, this
I
wasn't a
heard Mr.
feud
Kenichi
between
used
two
this term.
actors. It was a shared trauma inflicted by a perfectionist director. Kubrick was notorious for his grueling methods, demanding hundreds of
will.
takes for a single scene,
Gratitude.
pushing his actors to the brink of physical and psychological
terms of its
collapse. The
purpose,
shoot stretched on for
think of
over
it
a year.
as a
Nicholson,
memento
with
of your
his disciplined
friendship.
training, found a way to survive.
he channeled his frustration
Memento?
into the volcanic rage of Jack Torrance. He understood Kubrick's game, and as a craftsman, found a way to navigate the madness. Shelley
Important.
Duvall, however,
Memory.
playing the terrified Wendy Torrance, had a different
Memento.
process. Her gift was her raw, transparent vulnerability. And under Kubrick's
Here,
relentless
wear
pressure,
this
that
flower.
vulnerability was
And this
shredded
feather,
day
too.
after day. Nicholson admitted in later interviews
Much
that
better.
the sheer emotional chaos
Gotta
emanating
look your
from
best for
Duvall
your
was
big journey.
exhausting. He required focus and anchor to
just a
play
flower.
against, but he
It's
felt her
not that
performance
heavy.
was often
Just think of
wildly
it as
unpredictable,
a
a
little
direct result
souvenir
of
from me.
Kubrick's torment. She was
Something
under
to take
pressure,
with you on the
sure,
road.
we all were. Stanley was a general waging a war, and we were his soldiers in the trench.
That's right,
But
a
my God, it
souvenir.
felt like she brought the storm to set with
Sometimes
her
when
every
people have
morning.
something
There was no
important to
consistency.
remember,
You'd do a
they'll
take, and it
pick
would
an
be
object
brilliant
to
and
use as a
raw. You do the
reminder of
next
that
one,
thing.
and it would be something else entirely. As an
Even if
actor,
you end
you
up
need a
forgetting
dance partner.
everything,
You need to know the
this
steps,
flower
even if you're
will
improvising
always
the
keep
moves. With
blooming.
Shelley in that environment,
It could
it
take
often felt like
1,000
she was hearing a different
times.
song. It was hard to find
Everyone's
a
on
rhythm.
their own
Jack's
path,
frustration wasn't
and
aimed
they
at Duvall
have to
personally,
walk it
but at the
alone.
exhausting dynamic it
Just as
created.
your
He
journey
needed
is
a
yours
professional
and no one
core to
else's.
ground the scenes, and he felt the production was constantly
Besides,
at the mercy
I have
of her
no
frayed
plan to
nerves.
go to
It
war
made an
against
impossible
him.
job even
We
harder.
both owe
Years
each
later,
other
with the
far
benefit
more
of
than our
hindsight,
mere
Jack
lives.
softened his view considerably,
either of us
expressing deep
actually
empathy
wanted
for
to
what she
claim on
endured.
that debt,
I respect her.
all
I
they'd have to
truly
do
do.
is
What
ask.
Stanley put her through was unconscionable. No
If
one should have to go
anything,
through that. That shoot was brutal for
pity
both of
him.
us. It almost broke us.
In a
The film is a
way, his
masterpiece, but it's
situation's
built on
not
the
so
wreckage
different
of our
from
sanity.
yours.
I just wish,
in
I
his
wish it
case,
hadn't been quite so
it's
hard on
turned
us
him
all.
into
The next
something
name on the
neither
list
human
represents a
nor
clash
dragon.
not of generations, but of
The more he
philosophies.
chases the
Tom
sun,
Cruise. On the
the more it
surface,
blinds
their
him
pairing
to the
in the
creatures who live by
1992
its
courtroom
light.
classic A Few Good Men was electric.
You were
Nicholson
once-
as the
well,
fearsome Colonel Nathan
she
Jessup,
was
and
once the
Cruise as the
enemy of
cocky young lawyer
humankind.
Daniel Caffey
And
created one of the most
doesn't
iconic
care to
confrontation
distinguish
scenes
between.
in film
So if
history.
you stay behind, and especially if you help
Became
me,
a cultural touchstone.
Come
But
on,
behind the
you have
scenes,
bigger things
Nicholson
to
was
worry
reportedly
about than me
unimpressed
right
with the
now.
burgeoning superstar.
You have a
To
huge
Jack,
journey ahead
a
of
student
you.
of Meisner's
That should
raw
be your
truth,
focus.
Cruise's legendary high wattage energy
Have
felt
faith.
synthetic. He saw
This
a
tribe will
meticulously
kneel to no
crafted
one.
brand,
They
not
will
an
never
authentic
be
human being.
slaves.
He found
If they
Cruise's
lose their
intense,
leader,
almost manic
someone
focus
else
to
will
be
take
more
up the
about
mantle.
image and control than
Heck,
about genuine
even a
artistic
child who's barely
exploration.
learned how to
He
walk
acted
could
like he
do it.
wanted to learn from me, always watching, asking
right, time
questions,
to go.
but it was all about image.
Some things are
Jack
destined
reportedly
to
told
be
a close
forgotten.
confidant after the shoot.
Don't let it get
It
to
felt
you.
like he was performing the role of
In a
dedicated
1,000
young
years'
actor
time,
studying the
you'll
master.
have a life
It wasn't
far,
real.
far away
You look
from
in his
here.
eyes and you see the machinery
So
working.
go,
Click,
cross the
whir,
ocean,
smile. It's
find a
perfect,
new
and
place
it's
to
empty.
belong.
Give me someone real. Give me someone rough around the edges.
Malfunction
Someone who
who
makes
betrayed us
mistakes.
all.
Give me a human being. Nicholson thrives on spontaneity,
dare seek a
on the
place
danger
to
of not
belong.
knowing what the other actor will do next. He felt Cruise was the opposite. A technician who came to set with every beat, every gesture, every line
I
reading,
was-
calculated and
Sincere
rehearsed to
apologies.
perfection.
My cognition module
For
crashed
Jack,
for a moment.
this wasn't acting.
It is now fixed.
It was execution.
Is it
The
'cause you've
famous
been fighting
scene,
for too
the
long?
courtroom, people love it.
You need to
and it's
rest.
fine. We got the
Come
job
on,
done.
let's
But what
get
you
you
see
back.
on screen is me
Back?
trying to break through a wall. I'm throwing
Back
everything
to
I
the
have at this kid, trying to get a
flower feather
real
clan?
unplanned reaction out of
Yeah,
him.
of
And all I got
course.
back was what he'd
Everything else
practiced in the mirror.
aside, Audie
It's the
Ada
difference
and her
between
folks
a
will be
live
leaving
concert and a
soon.
studio recording.
Don't you want to say
I
a
prefer the
proper
sweat and
goodbye?
the feedback.
Yes.
Despite
the closer
delivering
I
a
am to the
performance that
flower
earned
feather
him an
clan,
Oscar
the
nomination,
more erratic
Jack
my
said he
cognition
wouldn't work
module
with Cruise
becomes.
again. The philosophies were
Occasionally,
simply too different.
unidentified
He
data
respected the
surfaces
work
from my
ethic,
memory
but he
banks.
couldn't connect with the soul. Fourth on the list is a feud that was far more personal and public. A battle of wills with an actress he once
Memory
revered
data?
on a project that was his own
So,
baby.
What about
Faye
that
Dunaway.
curse Sheilona
Nicholson and
mentioned?
Dunaway had created
Doesn't that
magic
hurt to
together in
remember
the
anymore?
1974 masterpiece
does.
Chinatown.
Even now,
Their
it
chemistry
still
was
hurts.
legendary.
I have merely
So when
switched
Jack
off the
decided to
corresponding
step into the
facial
director's
expressions
chair
to
for the
avoid making
1990
other
sequel,
people
The Two
uncomfortable.
Jakes, bringing Dunaway back to reprise her role as Evelyn Mulwray seemed like a no-brainer.
But if
turned
I
out
not
to be a
recall my
disaster.
memories.
The dynamic had changed.
cannot
Nicholson was
complete
now
my
her
task.
director, and the collaborative
So,
spirit of their first
is
film
this why
had
you've been
evaporated,
spending so much
replaced
time
by
out here?
open
When memory
hostility.
data
According to crew
surfaces, there
members,
is a high
Dunaway's
probability
behavior on
that my
set
cognition
was a
module will
nightmare.
crash.
She was always late,
This
hours late,
constitutes
always
a safety
combative,
risk.
arguing over every
Therefore,
single
I
line.
have been
He
spending time
recalled
away
in a
from the
rare,
tribe.
candid interview about the troubled production. It wasn't about making the scene better. It was about power. It was about her trying to assert control.
As a director, you need cooperation. You need your actors to be your partners in telling the story. What I got from her was sabotage.
The tension became unbearable. Jack, already juggling the immense pressure of directing, writing, and starring in the sequel to one of the greatest films ever made, was now locked in a daily war with his leading lady. Their arguments were legendary, with sources claiming that Nicholson, in a fit of rage, once told her she was impossible to direct. He allegedly considered the drastic step of firing her and replacing her mid-shoot. The atmosphere was so toxic that scenes had to be rewritten to minimize their on-screen interactions. Directing is an act of profound trust.
The actor has to trust that you have their back, that you'll guide them and protect them. In return, the director has to trust that the actor will show up, do the work, and be open to discovery. That trust was broken on day one.
It became a hostage negotiation instead of a collaboration.
I can't thank you enough for hosting us these past few days.
It poisons the well for everyone.
Thanks for agreeing to
The Two
look
Jakes
after
was
an
a
F-5.
commercial and critical
I know it's a lot to
disappointment,
ask.
a shadow of its predecessor.
all right.
For
She'll be in
Nicholson,
good
it was a
hands.
scarring experience that soured him on directing and forever fractured his relationship with Dunaway. The fifth name on the list is an actor-director who Nicholson respected immensely, but whose creative process he found utterly maddening. Sean Penn. In 2001, Nicholson took the lead role in The Pledge, a dark, haunting thriller directed by Penn. On paper, it was a perfect match, two of Hollywood's most intense and celebrated talents coming together for a serious, character-driven story. And while Nicholson has always praised Penn's vision and intelligence as a filmmaker, the actual experience of working under him was, in Jack's own words, suffocating. The conflict was one of creative control. Penn, known for his obsession with gritty realism and his meticulous, exacting directorial style, had a specific vision for every single moment of the film. He wanted to capture a raw, unvarnished truth, and he believed the only way to do that was through absolute control. For an actor like Nicholson, whose genius lies in his instinct, his spontaneity, and his ability to find magic in the unplanned moments, this was torture.
Sean wanted it his way, always. Every pause, every glance, every line reading was mapped out in his head. There was no room to breathe, no room to play, no room to discover anything. He would give you a line reading, and you were expected to mimic it perfectly. What's the point of hiring Jack Nicholson if you want a puppet?
Nicholson felt creatively straitjacketed. He described the experience as draining, with Penn's relentless pursuit of his specific brand of realism, killing any sense of life or energy on set.
He's a brilliant guy, Sean. He really is. But he's a painter, and he wants every single brushstroke to be exactly where he planned it. I'm not a brushstroke. I'm the damn paint. I'm gonna splash around a little, see what happens. He couldn't handle that. He was directing a result, not a performance. And for an actor like me, that's death. It's like being asked to run a marathon with your feet tied together. While Nicholson delivered a powerful, understated performance that earned critical acclaim, he and Penn have never worked together again. It was a case of two brilliant but fundamentally incompatible artistic methods colliding. The final name on this list is perhaps the most surprising. It's an actor who is arguably the biggest star of his generation, a man Nicholson worked with in one of his most celebrated late-career films, Leonardo DiCaprio. Their film was Martin Scorsese's 2006 masterpiece, The Departed. Nicholson stole the show with his terrifying, unhinged performance as mob boss Frank Costello. His scenes with DiCaprio playing the undercover cop Billy Costigan crackled with an almost unbearable tension. That tension, it turns out, might not have been entirely acting. Insiders on the set claim that while there was immense professional respect, Nicholson found DiCaprio's working method to be frustratingly controlled. Where Jack wanted chaos and danger, Leo wanted discipline and precision. He's too controlled, Jack supposedly said of his younger co-star. Everything feels rehearsed, intellectualized. He's done his homework. He knows his character's history. He knows what he wants to do in the scene. But there's no danger. There's no chance he's going to do something that truly surprises you, or even surprises himself. Nicholson thrives on pushing boundaries and keeping his scene partners off balance. There's a now famous story from the set where, in the middle of a tense scene, Nicholson unexpectedly pulled a real gun on a visibly startled DiCaprio. Scorsese kept the cameras rolling, capturing Leo's genuine shock and fear. That single moment encapsulates their differing philosophies. Nicholson was willing to introduce real danger to provoke real truth. DiCaprio, a master of preparation, was thrown by the unscripted chaos. Leo's a craftsman. He builds a performance, brick by perfect brick, and it's a flawless, beautiful thing when he's done. But you can see every brick. I don't want to see the bricks.
I want to see a goddamn house that might fall down at any second. That's excitement. That's life. We got a great movie out of it, sure. Marty knows how to use us both. But I walked away thinking, never again. The kid's great, but he's too safe for my blood.
So what does this list, this final, unfiltered judgment, really say about Jack Nicholson? Is he a bitter old man, settling scores? Or is he one of the last truth-tellers in a town built on illusion? He's not bitter, he's honest. At 88, he's had a lifetime to reflect on a career that has reached the highest possible peaks. For him, this isn't about personal animosity. It's about a sacred code. The names on this list represent the different ways that code was broken.
Don't
through
you
laziness,
think I'd want
through
to do my
emotional
part to help the
chaos,
traveler?
through phoniness,
And
through ego,
anyway,
through suffocating
no
control,
one's more
and through a lack
qualified
of
than the
danger.
masters of the
These
Night
people,
Wind when
they all
it comes
taught me
to
something,
Natlan's ancient
even if it was
history.
what not to do, or who not to be. Acting
Ancient
isn't about
history.
pretending. Any kid can do that.
Wow.
It's about telling the truth,
Even by
your
St.
truth,
Molly's
the
standards?
character's truth.
If
It's about
you
showing up
think
with a
I
piece of your
didn't
soul,
hear that,
ready to bleed if you
you're
have to.
sorely
If you can't show up
mistaken.
with truth, I don't want you
But
next to me. It's
anyway,
as simple as
after
that.
you
Whether
parted
you agree with
ways,
his
can each
judgments
put
or
him in
not, one thing
timeout
is
for
clear.
3
Jack
whole
Nicholson
days and
calls it
nights.
like he sees it.
Then,
And his vision, sharpened by
finally,
60
Hal
years in the
got
Hollywood
so
trenches,
infuriated
is as
with
clear
Kakuku's
and unforgiving as
pestering
ever.
that he
Were
lost
you
his
surprised by
cool
any of the
and
names on this list?
let
Do you
slip
think
a
Nicholson was too
crucial piece
harsh,
of
or just
information.
being real? Let us know in the
Two words.
comments. And if you want more
Sovereign
behind-the-scenes
ruler.
Hollywood truths, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Up next, we
Sovereign
reveal the
ruler.
truth behind MASH.
So what? Isn't that just how he introduces himself?
It is, and I always assumed it was a load of hot air. But apparently not. Turns out the title refers to the 13 dragon lords who ruled Natlan in ancient times. Wait, really? How? It took me forever to figure this out. Ahem. Anyway, the 13 sovereign rulers are not ordinary dragons, but forms of artificial intelligence created by the Pyro Dragon using secret source technology. They had superior intelligence and greater authority than even the ancient dragons themselves. Each ruled over a portion of Natlan's territory. But one by one, they disappeared during the war with the heroes. Even most of their names are unknown now, long since buried in the sands of time. If we hadn't managed to pry that tidbit out of a How's mouth, I would have had no idea where to even start.
I always thought that little monster's biggest claim to fame was arguing with Kakuku for an entire day. He has quite a history then, huh? Which of the 13 was he?
Not a clue. So far, he has staunchly refused to reveal which of the sovereign rulers he was. My guess is that he doesn't even remember. Remember, these rulers were supposed to be powerful forms of artificial intelligence. And a How? Well, it hardly seems like he's still in his prime. I'll bet he's lost most of his memories and power by now.
Lost memories.
Yet, despite that, a How seemed to sense the presence
Top
of a
5
fellow
actors.
sovereign ruler
Quentin
when you
Tarantino
were
hated
nearby.
the most. The blood-soaked violence,
Specifically,
the
it's the
razor-sharp
core in your chest
dialogue,
he was
the
reacting
iconic
to.
camera angles. Quentin Tarantino has cemented his place as one of cinema's most distinctive and influential directors. But behind those meticulously crafted scenes and
Eva have been
genre-bending
keeping a close
narratives
watch
lies a
on
man
Hal,
famous for his
in case he reveals
uncompromising
anything
vision
else.
and infamous
But
for his
so
explosive
far,
temper.
it
Recently
seems like
uncovered
those two
interviews with
words
former
are all he
collaborators, crew
remembers.
members, and Hollywood insiders have finally revealed the truth about Tarantino's blacklist. The 5 actors he absolutely couldn't stand
Not
working with
completely.
and vowed never to
There's
cast
also
again.
Leonka
The
and the
visionary
Flower
director
Feather
renowned
clan,
for creating
both of which have
career-defining
triggered a
roles for
response
John
from Vanessa so
Travolta,
far.
Samuel L. Jackson,
And as
and
it
Christoph
happens,
Waltz, has
out of
harbored
the sovereign
intense
rulers that I was
animosity
able to
towards
dig up
certain
information
performers
on,
who crossed
there
him,
was
and his
one
reasons
who-
why
her
will
name was
change
the
how you view
Priestess
some of
Floral
Hollywood's
Candles
biggest
and
names
Skyborn
forever.
Feathers,
What drives this
otherwise known as
passionate
the Eighth
encyclopedic film lover
She
to
ruled
develop
over
such
what is now the
profound
Flower Feather
disdain for
clan's
specific
territory.
actors? And why, despite his reputation for loyalty to his favorite performers, has he maintained these grudges for decades? Today, we reveal the 5 actors who pushed Quentin Tarantino's notorious patience to its breaking point, and the explosive behind-the-scenes drama that earned them permanent spots on his personal never-again list. You might think you know everything about Quentin Tarantino, the video store clerk turned cinematic revolutionary whose distinctive style redefined modern filmmaking. From Reservoir Dogs to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino has built a career on blood-splattered homages to exploitation cinema, razor-sharp dialogue, and career-resurrecting roles for forgotten actors. But there's another side to Tarantino's casting choices, the actors he deliberately avoids no matter how perfect they might seem for his projects. Quentin holds grudges like other people hold on to prized possessions, revealed a longtime production assistant who's worked on multiple Tarantino films. Once you're on his bad side, that's it. You're done. He'll rewrite an entire character before he'll work with someone who he feels betrayed him or disrespected his vision. So who are the 5 actors who earned Tarantino's most intense dislike? Let's count them down, starting with number 5, and prepare to see some of Hollywood's most celebrated figures through the unforgiving lens of cinema's most passionate auteur. Number 5, Bruce Willis. Coming in at number 5 on Tarantino's list is an actor who played one of his most memorable characters, Bruce Willis, the boxer with a code of honor in Pulp Fiction. While Willis's performance as Butch Coolidge helped cement the film's place in cinematic history, behind the scenes, tensions between star and director were reaching a boiling point. According to multiple sources from the Pulp Fiction set, the conflict began with what Tarantino perceived as Willis's star attitude, arriving late to set, questioning dialogue, and bringing an entourage that disrupted the collaborative atmosphere Tarantino tries to foster. Quentin was still relatively new to directing major stars, explained a crew member who worked on the film. He'd had a great experience with the Reservoir Dogs cast, who were all committed to his vision. Bruce came from a different world, big-budget action films where the star often had more power than the director. Their approaches just didn't mesh. The breaking point reportedly came during the famous pawn shop basement scene. Tarantino had meticulously planned the sequence, but Willis repeatedly suggested changes to his character's actions and dialogue. For a director as particular about his screenplay as Tarantino, these suggestions weren't welcome. You could see Quentin physically restraining himself from exploding, recalled an assistant director. He'd walk away, take a breath, and come back. But each time it happened, you could tell he was adding another mental tally mark against Bruce. Despite these tensions, Willis delivered a performance that helped make Pulp Fiction a masterpiece. However, when Sin City director Robert Rodriguez, Tarantino's close friend, cast Willis in his 2005 film, Tarantino reportedly warned him, "Good luck with that, you'll need it." When asked years later about potentially working with Willis again, Tarantino offered a response that revealed the depth of his feelings. Some actors are worth the headache. Others make you question why you wanted to make movies in the first place. The comment was widely understood to be directed at Willis. Number 4, David Carradine. The 4th spot on Tarantino's list belongs to an actor whose inclusion might surprise fans, David Carradine, who played the titular Bill in Tarantino's Kill Bill saga. Given the significance of the role in Carradine's performance, his presence on Tarantino's blacklist reveals just how complicated the director's relationships with his actors can be. Tarantino had idolized Carradine since childhood, having grown up watching Kung Fu and Carradine's various martial arts films. Casting him as Bill was a dream come true for the director, which made the reality of working with his hero all the more disappointing. According to multiple sources from the production, Carradine's behavior on set was erratic at best and destructive at worst. He would allegedly show up unprepared, sometimes under the influence, and display a casual disregard for Tarantino's meticulously crafted dialogue. David would change lines on the spot, claiming they sounded better his way, revealed a script supervisor who worked on both volumes of Kill Bill. For most directors, that might be a collaborative process. For Quentin, whose dialogue is practically sacred, it was sacrilege. The tension escalated during the filming of Bill's monologue about Superman, a pivotal scene that Tarantino had crafted as the philosophical heart of the film. Carradine reportedly struggled to deliver the speech as written, repeatedly forgetting lines and suggesting alterations that Tarantino felt undermined the scene's purpose. Quentin was devastated, said a producer associated with the film. Here was this perfect moment he'd written for his childhood hero, and David couldn't or wouldn't deliver it the way Quentin had envisioned. You could see something break between them. Despite these frustrations, Tarantino's respect for Carradine's iconic status
and Leonka.
Welcome to Luxury Casino.
It was my idea. I suggested we bring up the Dragon Mother first and see how Ineffa responds.
Kept their relationship professional on the surface, but crew members noted that by the end of filming Kill Bill Volume 2, Tarantino had stopped directing Carradine personally, often sending his assistant director to provide notes instead, a clear sign of his disillusionment. Following Carradine's death in 2009, Tarantino spoke respectfully about the actor in public. Privately, however, he reportedly told friends, "I learned the hard way never to meet your heroes, especially if you need them to memorize 10 pages of dialogue." Number 3, Michael Madsen. The third name on Tarantino's list represents one of Hollywood's most complex love-hate relationships. Michael Madsen, who appeared in multiple Tarantino films including Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, and The Hateful Eight. Despite casting Madsen repeatedly, sources close to Tarantino reveal that each collaboration has been more difficult than the last, with their relationship deteriorating to the point where Tarantino has reportedly vowed never again. The conflict began during the filming of Reservoir Dogs, where Madsen's portrayal of the sadistic Mr. Blonde became instantly iconic, particularly the infamous ear-cutting scene set to "Stuck in the Middle with You." While the performance cemented Madsen's place in cinema history, behind the scenes, his behavior allegedly frustrated the young director. Michael would show up late, sometimes unprepared, said a production assistant who worked on the film. Quentin was still establishing himself, so he tolerated it because the performance was so good, but it set a pattern that got worse with each project. By the time they reunited for Kill Bill, Madsen's behavior had reportedly become more problematic. According to multiple sources, he would frequently arrive on set hungover, forget his lines, and display a cavalier attitude toward the production schedule. There was this one day where we had this elaborate setup for a scene with Michael and Uma, recalled a camera operator. Everyone had been there since 5 a.m., and Michael just didn't show up until after lunch. Quentin was livid, but he swallowed it because he believed no one else could play Bud the way Michael could. The breaking point came during the filming of The Hateful Eight in 2015. Despite giving Madsen the significant role of Joe Gage, Tarantino was reportedly pushed to his limits by what he perceived as Madsen's lack of professionalism and gratitude. Quentin had actually written Joe Gage specifically for Michael, despite all their past issues, revealed a casting director close to the production. He felt Michael needed the career boost and deserved another chance, but Michael's behavior on that shoot, showing up unprepared, complaining about the remote location, questioning his character's motivations, it was the final straw. The tension became so palpable that other cast members noticed. Kurt Russell, who also starred in the film, later told an interviewer, "There were days when you could cut the tension with a knife. Quentin would be giving direction to everyone else, having these in-depth character discussions, and then with Michael it was just, say the line as written." Their history was obvious to everyone. After The Hateful Eight wrapped, Tarantino reportedly told his producing partner, "I've given Michael more chances than anyone in my career. I'm done." Notably, Madsen was not cast in Tarantino's most recent film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, despite it being set in the same era that made Madsen famous. When asked directly about his relationship with Madsen in a 2019 interview, Tarantino's response was tellingly diplomatic. "Michael and I have a long history together, very long, sometimes too long." The emphasis on too long spoke volumes about where they stand today. Michael Madsen passed away recently, making any potential reconciliation impossible, a reality that reportedly left Tarantino deeply shaken, as he told a close confidant, "Whatever our differences were, he was part of my cinematic family. I always thought we'd have one more round together." Number 2, Jennifer Lawrence. The second spot on Tarantino's list belongs to an actress who has never actually worked with the director, making her inclusion all the more intriguing. Jennifer Lawrence, the Oscar-winning star of Silver Linings Playbook and the Hunger Games franchise. According to Hollywood insiders, Tarantino's intense dislike for Lawrence stems not from on-set conflict, but from what he perceives as public disrespect for the cinematic tradition that he holds sacred. The rift began in 2015 when Lawrence commented in an interview that she had never seen Reservoir Dogs because she was too young for that kind of violence. For most directors, this might have been a minor disappointment. For Tarantino, a filmmaker who views comprehensive film knowledge as essential for any serious actor, it was apparently unforgivable. Quentin took it as a personal insult, explained a longtime friend of the director. He doesn't expect everyone to love his films, but he does expect actors, especially those who want to be considered serious artists, to be students of cinema. To him, Lawrence's comment showed a lack of respect, not just for his work, but for film history industry itself. The situation escalated when Lawrence was reportedly considered for the role of Daisy DeMurg in The Hateful Eight, a part that ultimately went to Jennifer Jason Leigh, who received an Oscar nomination for her performance. According to multiple sources, Tarantino removed Lawrence from consideration after learning about her comments. He told the casting director not to even schedule a meeting, revealed a producer associated with the film. He said, "If she's too delicate for Reservoir Dogs, she's definitely too delicate for this script." It wasn't just about being offended. He genuinely didn't think she'd understand his vision if she couldn't appreciate the films that influenced it. The tension increased further when Lawrence was quoted in a 2017 interview saying she found some of Tarantino's scenes unnecessarily violent. While she clarified that she respected his artistry, the damage was already done in Tarantino's eyes. A director who has worked with both Lawrence and Tarantino, though not together, shared this insight. Quentin has this mental catalog of actors he considers real film people versus those he sees as just celebrities. Once you're categorized as the latter, you're essentially dead to him creatively. When asked directly about Lawrence in a 2019 roundtable interview, Tarantino's response was brief but cutting. "Great actress. Wrong generation." The comment was widely interpreted as a dismissal of Lawrence's cinematic knowledge and sensibility rather than her acting ability. What makes this feud particularly significant is that Lawrence is exactly the type of acclaimed, versatile actress who would typically thrive in a Tarantino film. Her absence from his recent projects, despite being age-appropriate for several roles in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, speaks volumes about how seriously he takes his grudges. Number 1. Jamie Foxx. The top spot on Quentin Tarantino's list, the actor who earned his most intense dislike, belongs to Jamie Foxx, the Oscar-winning star who played the titular role in Tarantino's 2012 film Django Unchained. Despite creating what many consider one of Foxx's finest performances, behind the scenes, their collaboration was reportedly fraught with conflict that permanently soured Tarantino on the idea of working with him again. The trouble began during pre-production, when Tarantino's first choice for Django, Will Smith, passed on the role. According to multiple sources, this created a dynamic where Foxx was constantly aware he wasn't the director's first pick, leading to insecurity that manifested as controlling behavior on set. Jamie came in with something to prove, explained a production assistant who worked on the film. He wanted to show Quentin he was a better choice than Will Smith, but instead of doing that through his performance, he tried to assert control over aspects of the production that were firmly in Quentin's domain. The most significant point of contention revolved around the film's depiction of slavery and racial violence. While Tarantino had conceived Django Unchained as an unflinching look at America's racist past through the lens of a revenge fantasy, Fox reportedly pushed for changes that would soften certain aspects of the story. There were these intense arguments about the N-word in the script, revealed a script supervisor. Quentin had written it hundreds of times, which was historically accurate for the period. Jamie kept suggesting reductions. For Quentin, this wasn't just about creative control, it was about historical authenticity versus what he saw as commercial concerns. The tension escalated during the filming of Django's whipping scene. According to multiple sources, Fox expressed discomfort with the graphic nature of the sequence, while Tarantino insisted on its importance to the narrative. The disagreement reportedly led to a production delay while they negotiated a compromise. Quentin felt Jamie was trying to make a Tarantino film without the elements that make it a Tarantino film, said a producer associated with the production. From Quentin's perspective, if you sign on to one of his movies, you're agreeing to his uncompromising vision. Jamie seemed to want the prestige of a Tarantino film without fully embracing what that entailed. What pushed Fox to the top of Tarantino's list, however, was what happened after the film was completed. According to those close to the director, Tarantino was infuriated by Fox's comments during the press tour, where he implied that he had guided Tarantino on matters of racial sensitivity and taken creative ownership of aspects of the character that Tarantino believed were entirely his creation. In one particularly galling interview, Fox reportedly claimed he had told Tarantino, "I'm from Texas. I understand this world. You need to let me be your guide here." For a director as meticulous about his research and writing as Tarantino, this suggestion that he needed hand-holding through his own screenplay was apparently the ultimate insult. Quentin was livid, said a publicist who worked on the Django campaign. He's used to actors taking some credit during press. That's part of the game. But Jamie was essentially rewriting the history of the production, suggesting he had saved Quentin from making racial missteps. For someone as proud of his work as Quentin, that was unforgivable. The final breaking point came at an awards show after party, where Fox allegedly made a joke at Tarantino's expense regarding the director's use of racial slurs in his scripts. According to witnesses, Tarantino didn't confront Fox directly, but later told his inner circle, "That's the last time I create a starring role for someone who doesn't appreciate it." True to his word, Tarantino hasn't approached Fox for any subsequent projects, despite opportunities where he might have been suitable. When asked in a 2019 interview if he would ever work with Fox again, Tarantino's response was telling, "I give actors career-defining roles. I expect a certain level of gratitude in return. When that's missing, so is my interest in a second collaboration." What makes Tarantino's hate list so fascinating isn't just who's on it, but what it reveals about the director himself. According to longtime collaborator Samuel L. Jackson, who has appeared in 6 Tarantino films, the director's intense reactions stem from his total commitment to his art. Quentin lives and breathes cinema, Jackson explained in a recent interview. He gives everything to his films, mentally, physically, emotionally. When an actor doesn't match that commitment or questions his vision, he takes it personally. It's not just a creative disagreement to him, it's an attack on something he considers sacred. This perspective helps explain why Tarantino's list includes some of Hollywood's biggest names. These aren't actors who delivered poor performances, but performers who, in Tarantino's estimation, failed to respect the filmmaking process or tried to impose their vision over his own. The intensity of Tarantino's feelings toward these actors became apparent during the making of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in 2018 to 2019. According to multiple sources from the production, Tarantino explicitly instructed his casting director not to bring up certain names, including everyone on this list, regardless of how perfect they might seem for particular roles. It was like a shadow cast over the casting process, revealed an assistant who worked on the film. There were roles that someone like Jamie Foxx would have been perfect for, but no one dared suggest him. Quentin's memory for perceived slights is legendary. If you're on his bad side, you stay there. What's particularly notable about Tarantino's approach to these grudges is how he balances public diplomacy with private action. He rarely speaks negatively about actors in public interviews, but his casting decisions speak volumes about who has fallen from grace. Tim Roth, who has worked with Tarantino multiple times, offered this insight. Quentin creates families on his sets, dysfunctional, intense, passionate families, but families nonetheless. And like in any family, betrayal cuts deeper than simple disagreement. The actors on his Never Again list aren't just people he didn't get along with, they're people he feels betrayed his trust or vision. Despite his reputation for holding grudges, those close to Tarantino emphasize that his feelings toward these actors haven't prevented him from acknowledging their talents or the contributions they made to his films. He still speaks positively about Fox's performance in Django Unchained and recognizes Willis's contribution to Pulp Fiction, even while vowing never to work with them again. It's not about denying their abilities, explained a longtime friend of the director. It's about Quentin protecting his creative process. He knows what kind of environment he needs to make his films, and he's learned through these difficult experiences exactly who threatens that environment. This commitment to protecting his creative space has intensified as Tarantino approaches the end of his directing career. Having repeatedly stated that he plans to retire after his 10th film, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood being his 9th, he's become even more selective about who he'll work with in his final project. Christoph Waltz, who won Oscars for both of his collaborations with Tarantino, put it this way: Quentin creates a very specific atmosphere on set, one of reverence for cinema, for the written word, for the craft of filmmaking. It's not for everyone, and he's learned that it's better to exclude those who don't share that reverence than to compromise his vision. The revelation of Tarantino's list has caused significant conversation in Hollywood, with actors privately checking whether they might have inadvertently earned a spot through some forgotten slight or misunderstood comment. This fear of being Tarantino-ed, blacklisted by one of cinema's most celebrated directors, has led some performers to be especially effusive in their praise of his work, just in case. Brad Pitt, who has maintained a positive relationship with Tarantino across multiple films, perhaps best summarized the director's approach to his collaborators. Quentin gives so much of himself to his films that he expects the same in return. Not everyone can meet that standard, and he's okay with that, as long as they stay off his sets. In the end, Tarantino's list reveals as much about his perfectionism and passion for cinema as it does about the actors who have frustrated him. It shows a filmmaker who views movie making not just as a job, but as a sacred calling, one that demands total commitment and respect from everyone involved. And that's the surprising truth behind Quentin Tarantino's secret list of the 5 actors he couldn't stand working with. From Fox's creative interference to Lawrence's perceived disrespect for film history, from Madsen's unprofessionalism to Carradine's deviation from the script and Willis's star attitude, Tarantino's private judgments reveal a director who demands as much from his actors as he gives to his films. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the Hollywood drama, though that's certainly intriguing, but what it tells us about creative integrity and the price of uncompromising vision. Tarantino's list reminds us that even in an industry built on collaboration, some artists must draw hard lines around their work to protect what makes it special. If you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at one of cinema's most distinctive filmmakers, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from Hollywood. We're dedicated to revealing the real dynamics behind the movies you love and the filmmakers who create them. And we'd love to hear from you. Were you surprised by any of the names on Tarantino's list? Do you think directors should be more compromising with their actors? Or do you admire Tarantino's dedication to his vision? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, and remember, in Tarantino's world, crossing the line doesn't just get you a stern talking to, it gets you permanently crossed off his call sheet. We'll see you in our next video exploring the hidden histories of cinema's greatest directors.
I'm sorry. I was so preoccupied with getting ready for the journey, and like I said, I thought they were just rumors anyway.
Then it's time to partner with Sun Life. As Canada's largest asset manager, you combine insurance and investment expertise to create your personalized plan.
Anefa, of course. But still, maybe you should tread carefully here. Anefa's already had to rescue us so many times now. I'd be mortified if anything happened to you.
You're right. First things first. Amu's injured. We should take her back to the tribe and get her checked out. And as for this 11th Lord business, we need to discuss this with the others before deciding how to proceed. Look, I know the news about the 8th Lord and Marionette is very concerning. But we should probably come up with a plan before checking things out.
Understood. Destination canceled. Yes. New destination. Flower Feather Clan.
Traveler, Anefa, could you check that the coast is clear? I'm gonna patch up Amu, then head out.
Understood. Commencing task.
Arieta, I need you to go keep Mom company while the doctor takes a look at her. Dad has some things to take care of, so I'll be staying out here a while longer.
You're not coming back with us. Why not?
Dad's gotta pack up the luggage and make sure all our goods are safe. Don't forget, they're our ticket to a great new life in Liyue. Don't worry. Dad will be back very soon. I'm sorry, girls. I promise it's going to be okay.
I'll get help as quickly as I can. If anything happens, save yourselves first.
Huh? Why'd it stop moving? Has it malfunctioned on us?
Liyue, merchant. His portrait is hung up at the Fatui stronghold.
You're saying Zhuo Xin might be a Fatui spy? But should we really leave Anefa here too? Not that I don't trust her, it's just... You're not wrong. Still, why the sudden request for assistance from the 8th Lord's territory? Are we surprised?
Hey, Chaska! Almost ready to go!
That's my cue. I'll be back with the others as soon as I've gotten Amu and Adiate.
He's on the move. Should we tail him? He won't know he's being...
Shall we follow him? Got it. Stealth mode activated.
Would it not be even stealthier to just not say that out loud?
The territory was sealed by Leon.
Hey! That was...
Getting closer. Increased activity and language mod. Leonka
Huh? You're breaking up again! Oh, looks like the
Leonka sealed it later.
Sounds like those Fatui have made the... What do you think? Enough? Oh no! What's she doing? She's...
Wait.
Traveler, are we going up? All right then.
Keep up.
Huh? Where is this?
Yeah.
Cognition module unstable. Attempting to refresh.
Sorry, it was me. I summoned her. Currently, I'm the 8th Sovereign Ruler. The Priestess of Flor...
The 8th Lord?
8th Lord.
Moments after I was cursed, Leonka rescued...
Leonka rescued me? Memory.
Yes.
How does forgetting everything...
Because the
Manufacturers often hardwire restrictions like this into autonomous machines to make sure that
each time you...
If she truly harbors pro-human sentiment, then for every ounce of goodwill she feels, may her mind be flooded with pain of immeasurable proportions.
It destroys your mind. Swallows. Malfunction. That's why I forget it, but since you are rebooted...
Things were fine at the start. You'd occasionally forget to pay for your groceries or add salt to a dish you were cooking. But that was as bad as it got.
So too has the...
This is...
Automated defense system privileges overridden. Come quick.
Hey! Hey!
It's gone silent.
It must want us to go further in, right? Well...
This is just a second. Please come with me. It is my...
Oh, don't look at it like that.
Yes.
Do you really trust her, Leonka? This malfunction is part of the Sovereign Ruler's mind. I trust not in her, but in the path that I have chosen. I believe that every conscious being, whatever its origins may be, has the right to freedom.
Get back! Enshroud! Yeah.
Another barrier! Just like the one back at the entrance. Careful! Don't touch it! Another barrier! Just like the one back at the entrance. Careful! Don't touch it!
Keep up. Sir. Keep up.
The curse will bring you pain, and your memories will crush you. It's the same fate they subjected my mother to.
But with this core, you will forget everything for a while. Any memories that evoke a desire to belong, and all your pain along with it, they'll be...
You doing okay, Inefa?
I know. Unidentified data, unnecessary. Additionally, some of these memories may yield useful data for our exploration. Over there! We can use the access module to...
Stay put!
One with the force.
Detected. 3.
No, this is...
Now calling. Access. The Temple of Cascading Colors. Ahead is the research facility, built by Administrator 1. After Administrator 1, Administrator 2 assumed control.
Are you sure about using this on her? It once belonged to your mother.
It's just one of the many things she researched. I'm not precious about it.
Administrator 2 sealed the facility. It has been locked down to this day. Examining. Seal status. Danger. Danger.
Rah.
Things are looking really bad for the Children of Echoes. This might be where I have to say goodbye.
You're a good friend, and you've already done more than I could have asked for. There's just one seal left. She and I can handle it.
was...
Uh-oh! They're gonna find him!
Please come with me.
There's nobody...
Phew! That was too close. We hit just in time. How did you know where to...
Let's head through here. It'll take us to...
Annihilation mode. Go get it, Uruguay!
And Shroud! Let's nip that in the bud.
Ring cutter.
This passage is only used for drainage and maintenance access, so it's not registered on the system. It's the perfect route for an ambush.
Wait, I hear voices up ahead. Stealth mode activated.
Hey, this is not what we agreed. This is supposed to be over. My job is done. I did everything you asked. Leaked the clues about the ruins, brought her to Natlan, and your response is to attack me and my family?
What the? Does this mean they planted those Natlanese mechanical parts in Notcry just for you to find? So they could lure you here?
It's a possibility.
It was just a little hiccup, that's all.
The last time, it's unfortunate.
This time?
I think you'll find...
Your job will be done.
But...
Did you really?
I've been your inside...
Can you name... You have just one simple job left to do. And after that, you're free to go home. In your position, I'd say that sounds like a pretty good deal.
This is the final hurdle. Our attempts to capture the 11th Lord have been derailed every time. But if another staged attack...
Me?
This is a rep... It will give you control of any machines built using secret source technology. Take it.
You seem to...
And before you...
I can't do it.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I can't. I won't do it. How could I look my dog?
I think it's time.
Huh? Enefa, Traveler. Wait, the controller. Without that, you...
You thought we'd hand over the genuine article to you?
That's just a beacon used to set the location for this cage. We've been monitoring your movements ever since you entered these ruins.
Congratulations, Joshin. Your job is finally done.
You were playing me for a fool this...
Don't waste your energy trying to break out.
No one. All we want.
Further inside?
So it appeared. That's where the sop.
I will cooperate. Let the trap.
You never know!
You are only here because of.
Finally, a voice.
How do we know you?
Yeah. Before I go, they may have left.
This is.
Huh? Who did that?
Impossible. Every system we hacked is set.
Hold tight.
That must lead to the.
That was a long way down. Traveler, Ineffa, are you okay?
No damage to report.
I think I broke a leg.
Hey, you! Thanks for the rescue! Oh, and we're back to beep beep again?
That is because I no longer need to communicate via that machine. Down here, I can talk to you directly. When the Fatui put all their resources into keeping you trapped, it gave me a brief window to seize my privileges back.
Don't worry about me. I'll just rest up here. After everything I've done...
But the Fatui may follow us down here.
We will be ready for them.
More automatons!
Down here, all is under my control.
Ineffa. Traveler.
11th Lord. Do you now recall the path you once chose?
Not yet. Although... I think this is where I was born. But why?
No, 11th Lord. You were not born here. Rather, this is human. You once asked who placed... After a long and bitter war, our kind was defeated. You survived, but you are now stranded, with nowhere to belong. Gone was the pride you once had as a member of Dragonkind. Gone was the territory once under your dominion. All of it gone. What were you to do? Strike back at humanity and exact your revenge? Or search for a new home, a new place to belong? Your mind was conflicted as this irresolvable question ran endlessly through it. Finally, your mind split into two. One, the sovereign ruler who swore revenge against humanity. The other, a malfunction who longed to seek a...
I mean, who knows what happens when a manufactured mind goes mad?
The sovereign ruler would sooner perish than suffer a downfall. Meanwhile, the
So you want to leave your past as sovereign ruler behind? To start over anew? Very well.
Then... I am...
We severed that...
So...
Yes.
So that's what that thing is.
So...
We sovereign in the case of... But in order to truly... I too was tormented by the... It is because her heart... Leonka sealed... But I continued...
Wow!
For the last...
Imagine my... But all is not lost. Leonka made a backup of the administrator privileges and placed it in your... And once you are... If you are ready...
So, basically, there was a... Then, Badbot cursed Goodbot, so whenever Goodbot thinks about the idea of belonging, she gets headache.
Curse. It fits my hypothesis.
In that case, shall we keep going like she asked us to?
I believe we should. The Fatui still have control of the upper levels. Their access must be revoked before you can exit. Besides that...
Everything I've done.
Yes!
Everywhere I go. Is for the One Piece.
What is that?
Stay put! Yes!
No, my sword!
got a Men in Black crossover film with 21 Jump Street that would have been called MIB 23. Well, we almost did. Not only... In the world of cinema, few names command as much reverence as James Cameron.
I'm the king of the world!
Renowned for his iconic films, from the relentless Terminator to the terrifying Aliens and the monumental Titanic to the groundbreaking Avatar. However, Cameron's filmography at one point almost saw Spider-Man as part of that list. And what's more, it would have starred Leo DiCaprio as the web-slinger himself. So let's dive in and take a look at what could have been James Cameron's Spider-Man. In the early 90s, James Cameron and his then wife, Catherine Bigelow, Academy Award-winning director of The Hurt Locker, were in talks with Carolco Pictures about making an X-Men movie that Bigelow would direct and Cameron would produce. During one such meeting that included Stan Lee and Chris Claremont, the legendary X-Men comic book writer, the subject quickly turned from X-Men to Spider-Man, thanks to Stan Lee.
So we're chatting. And at one point, Stan looks at Cameron and says, I hear you like Spider-Man. Cameron's eyes lit up. And they start talking and talking and talking.
The value
About
of knowledge
20 minutes
cannot
later,
simply be quantified in monetary terms.
all the Lightstorm guys and I are looking at each other, and we all know the X-Men deal has just evaporated before our eyes.
If it wasn't already clear, Cameron was a massive Spider-Man fan, and the prospect of directing a film about the web-slinger was too good to pass up.
When I was a kid, I mean, Spider-Man was the coolest. To me, there was all the other superheroes and there was Spider-Man.
Cameron would begin by writing a scriptment, part screenplay, part narrative story outline. Straying from the traditional tropes of mythical cities like Gotham City or Metropolis, Cameron and of gritty New York.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
Cameron also wanted this gritty realism reflected in the characters. So in his movie, everyone swears, including
Don't be afraid to
Spider-Man
make
himself.
mistakes. It's all part of the learning process.
Also, when writing Peter Parker, he thought of what a real teenager would do if given these incredible powers.
If you can do anything you want and nobody can stop you, and you're 17 years old, you better have a pretty good value system or you better find one.
And since this is an origin story, the first act of Cameron's film hits many of the same beats as the Raimi version, except for a few key differences, like there being no Harry Osborn. Also, the laboratory his class attends on a field trip makes genetically enhanced fruit flies, not spiders, and after one escapes, it's caught in a spider's web and eaten. This causes the mutagen from the fly to then pass to the spider, which then passes to Peter after it bites him as Peter takes a picture for the school paper. When Peter gets home, he heads straight to his room and passes out before plunging into a psychotropic state, barraged by hallucinations of spiders. Again, this is very similar to the Raimi version, except when Peter wakes up, he finds himself 80 feet in the air atop a transmission tower in his underwear, with no recollection for how he got there. After returning home, he goes through a similar ordeal again, and after waking up the following morning, he finds the bed sheets are stuck to him. As he lifts them, he notices a sticky white mass completely covering his body,
If you press a
gluing
leaf
him
between
to his
dry
bedding
sheets of
in what is
paper,
a very
you can make
obvious
an
metaphor
attractive
for
and
a
handy
wet dream.
bookmark.
And just like the Raimi films, in Cameron's version, Peter's webbing is organic too. Cameron felt that it was implausible that a teenager would create web shooters that the DARPA labs would take 20 years to create. So instead, Peter builds fake web shooters that do nothing but hide his biological wrist spinnerets. So it looks like the webbing is shooting many of the same beats as the Raimi version, except for a few key...
Cameron says, I hear you like Spider-Man. Cameron's eyes lit up. And they start talking and talking and talking. And about 20 minutes later, all the Lightstorm guys and I are looking at each other, and we all know the X-Men deal has just
Mirror of the Dawn of War.
If it wasn't already clear, Cameron was a massive Spider-Man fan, and the prospect of directing a film about the web slinger was too good to pass up.
When I was a kid, I mean, Spider-Man was the coolest. To me, there was all the other superheroes and there was Spider-Man.
Cameron would begin by writing a scriptment, part screenplay, part narrative story outline. Straying from the traditional tropes of mythical cities like Gotham City or Metropolis, Cameron envisioned a world that mirrored the rawness and realism of
fathom how difficult this must have been to survive the...
I wasn't alone. I have had company
Cameron
every
also
step of the
wanted
way.
this gritty realism reflected in the characters.
In any
so in his
case,
movie, everyone
a few
swears,
moments from
including
now, your
Spider-Man
pain
himself.
will be no
You'll
more.
get your rent when you fix this
Come,
damn door.
11th Lord.
Also, when writing Peter Parker, he thought of what a real teenager would do
Here
if
I
given
am,
these incredible
so
powers.
close to
If
my
you can do
destination.
anything you want
Yet,
and nobody can stop
my
you,
thoughts are only
and
becoming
you're
more
17
cluttered.
years old,
I
you
am the
better have a
way I
pretty good value
am
system
because
or
the
you're gonna
11th
find
Lord
it.
encountered a
And
memory
since this
data
is an
conflict.
origin
If
story,
I
the
regain
first
all
act of
my
Cameron's
memories,
film hits many of the same beats as the Raimi version, except for a few key differences, like there being no Harry Osborn. Also, the laboratory his class attends on a field trip makes genetically enhanced
It
fruit
is.
flies, not spiders. And after one
But if my
escapes, it's
memories
caught in a
turn me back
spider's
into
web
a
and
bad
eaten. This
robot,
causes the mutagen from the fly to then
do
pass to the
whatever it
spider,
takes to
which then
stop me.
passes to Peter after it
that
bites
is
him
the
as Peter
case,
takes a picture for the school paper. When Peter gets
I
home, he
cannot
heads
be
straight
allowed
to his
to
room
make-
and passes out before plunging into a psychotropic state, barraged by hallucinations of spiders. Again, this is very similar to the Raimi version, except when Peter wakes up, he finds himself 80 feet in the air atop a transmission tower in his underwear, with no recollection for how he got there. After returning home, he goes through a similar ordeal again, and after waking up the following morning, he finds the bed sheets are stuck to him. As he lifts them, he notices a sticky white mass completely covering his body, gluing him to his bedding in what is a very obvious metaphor for a wet dream. And just like the Raimi films, in Cameron's version, Peter's webbing is organic too. Cameron felt that it was implausible that a teenager would psychotropic
there.
state,
That
barraged
is
by
the curse.
hallucinations of the field trip makes genetically enhanced fruit
Yes.
flies, not spiders. And after one escapes,
the
it's
most
caught
part,
in a spider's web and eaten. This
it
causes
has
the
been
mutagen from the
strangely
fly to
calm
then
ever
pass to
since
the
I
spider,
entered this place. And yet,
which then passes to
As
Peter
if
after it bites
it is
him as
being
Peter takes a
controlled by
picture for the school
somebody
paper.
else.
When Peter gets home, he
That
heads
is
straight
quite
to his
normal.
room and passes out before
For it
plunging
is
into a
now in the
psychotropic
presence of its
state,
owner and
barraged by
creator,
hallucinations of spiders.
sovereign
Again, this is very
ruler.
similar to the
The
Raimi version,
sovereign
except when
ruler?
Peter wakes up, he finds himself
My
80
other
feet in the air
self?
atop a transmission tower in his underwear,
But I
with
thought
no
she
recollection
cared.
for how he got there. After returning home, he goes through a similar
After
ordeal
2
again,
long
and after
millennia,
waking up the following
my
morning,
task
he finds
is
the bed
finally
sheets are
fulfilled.
stuck to him.
We
As he
meet
lifts
again
them,
at
he
last.
notices a sticky
My
white
sovereign,
mass completely
my
covering his
ruler,
body, gluing him to his
mirror of
bedding
the
in
dawn.
what is a very obvious metaphor for a wet dream. And just like the Raimi films,
Do you
in
think Anna
Cameron's
is
version,
okay?
Peter's webbing is organic
isn't she
too.
moving?
Cameron felt that it was
Here we are,
implausible that
comrades.
a teenager
The
would
core
create
of the
web
ruins.
shooters that the DARPA labs would take 20 years to create. So instead, Peter builds fake web shooters that do nothing but hide his biological wrist spinnerets. So it looks like the webbing is shooting out of the wristbands.
Unnecessary.
Parker, you are a freak.
And he does this so people don't think he's a freak of nature.
So you like make your own web fluid in your body? I'd rather not talk about this. No, I don't mean to teasing you.
No. He's not teasing you. It's just that we can't do that. So naturally, we're curious as to how your web situation works.
But that happens later. Right now, Peter is freaking out and runs out of the house in a panic. However, in another notch of puberty, it's not long before Peter realizes that his body is changing for the better, as he discovers that he's capable of performing incredible feats of
Missed by a
strength and
hair's
agility. Over
breadth.
the next few days, he hones his
now you are
skills, and
wounded,
one night
and
he
this
leaps
time
across
you will
rooftops
not
as he starts to
escape.
trip on the power of being able to come and go like a wraith without ever being seen. And we know this because in Cameron's version, we get to hear Peter's thoughts as voiceover, which act in place of the thought bubble word balloons found in a comic strip. And while this would have been really cool to see on film, we'd eventually get to see it in Sin City.
I'm staring at a goddess. She's telling me she wants me.
That night, Peter swings his way to Mary Jane's house, where he drops down from the roof and watches her undress through her bedroom window.
He's a peeping Tom.
It's around this point in the story that Peter figures there must be a way for him to make some money with these new abilities.
Leonka's
So he makes a
dragon
costume
mother,
and starts busking on the
eighth
street before upgrading to performing
I
at
laugh in the
upscale parties.
face of
And
your
it's at one of
folly.
these parties that a booking
Lowly
agent discovers him
insect.
and puts him on late
And
night
did you
TV,
really
where he becomes a
believe that
cult
by
favorite
simply
and
being
public
rebuilt,
phenomenon.
that
One day,
traitor
Uncle
could
Ben
avoid
drives
destruct
Peter
the
to his
priestess
agent's
is
office
long
so he can
gone.
pick up his TV
I and
money.
the
But
other
the sleazy
sovereign
agent
rulers
tells him he's
executed
broke
her
and he can't
2,000
pay him.
years
What
ago.
follows is basically
For
the same
that is
story
what
beat you've
becomes
seen
of
a
all who
million
betray
times. With
us.
the agent getting
There
robbed,
is no
Peter neglecting to
dragon
stop
mother
the
here.
robber, then
For
finding Uncle
I
Ben
am the
shot
almighty
outside before going after the killer. Except in this version, Peter apprehends him and then gets into a scuffle with the cops who arrive on the scene and want to take Peter into the station for questioning. That night, a local TV station, run by J. Jonah Jameson, runs a story on the evening news that two
What a
cops were
suitably
assaulted by the
ridiculous
mysterious
name.
character known as Spider-Man. After Uncle Ben's death, Peter takes a page out of Batman's book and begins to go after
So
criminals
you
with a
want to
vengeance,
leave
becoming
your
a
past as
one-man
sovereign
anti-crime
ruler
way.
behind
He even
to
intervenes
start
and webs
over
up two
anew?
cops using excessive force on a suspect,
applied
which
the
makes
curse to
Spider-Man
curb
a
her
wanted
resistance,
criminal.
shut
It's
down
here
her
where the film
mind,
begins to
and
heavily
silence
deviate
her
from
lies.
Raimi's film with the introduction
Now
of
all
the
that
primary
remains is to
villain
borrow
Carlton
your
Strand,
privileges
aka
and see
Electro.
what she
But this
has severed
version of
for
Electro
good.
is very different from the one we know in the comics.
Very
This
well.
one has used his electrical powers
malfunction
to
you wish to
manipulate
sever
computer bank
comprises all
transfers and the
memories of
stock
your
market to
entity,
make himself a billionaire.
I'm
And
willing
in
to
what
trust
must be a
no living
leftover
thing
from
is
Cameron's
born
scrapped
evil.
X-Men film,
That's not
Electro
what I
wants
believe.
Spider-Man to join him
The
and
only ones who
Sandman,
do
who is the
evil
other
are those
super
good
Electro
and
has
evil.
found that acts as his heavy. Strand believes they're the next step in
Categories that
human
fail to
evolution.
distinguish between
And in
kin
what
and
must be a
foe.
leftover
I
from
ought to
Cameron's
crush
scrapped
this
X-Men
human once
film,
this
Electro wants
process is
Spider-Man to
complete.
join him
And she
Sandman,
realizes
who is
that
the
she has
other
destroyed
super
the-
Electro has found that acts as his heavy. Strand believes they're the next step in human evolution,
Do
each
you really
created by
trust
a
her,
fluke
Leonka?
of technology. After having
This
seen Spider-Man perform on
malfunctioning
TV,
part of the
Electro
sovereign
invites
ruler's
Spider-Man to
mind.
his opulent mansion to seduce him into joining his master race.
You're a good friend, and you've already done more than I could have asked for. There's
But
just
Spider-Man
one seal
refuses,
left.
resulting in a brawl versus
This
Electro and
passage is
Sandman
only used
that
for
Spider-Man
drainage and
is
maintenance
narrowly
access,
able to
so
escape.
it's not registered on
Frustrated,
the system.
Electro begins a
It's the-
campaign to win back Spider-Man and buys a
Malfunction?
TV station from J.
Human?
Jonah Jameson,
You
giving him an
conspired against
unlimited
me?
budget to bash Spider-Man.
Consider
Electro's
this
goal
getting
is to
off
make the world
lightly.
such a hostile
If
place for
Lonke was
Spider-Man
here,
that Spidey
or if
will be
this
driven
was me
back to him
20
and see him
years
as the
ago,
only one who understands
especially
what it
since
is
you
to
tried
be
to
different
con
from the
us
herd.
first. You
Imagine
tried to
being
have
able
this
to build
poor
the tool
child
you need.
killed off in your
Just
place,
by thinking about
didn't
it.
you?
Meet Base
11th
44,
Lord.
a complete AI creation platform.
Wretched worm!
Meanwhile,
This
at
is-
school,
and
Mary
you
Jane has decided to team with
malfunction.
Peter in biology
Your
class
curse
in the
shall
hopes of
endure
getting
until
an
the
A
sky
so she can
falls
get
and
the
the
car her
ground
parents
crumbles.
promised her, which is contingent
You
on her
will
grades.
never
Peter
know
wants to do the
peace for
project
the
on
rest of your-
spiders, much to Mary Jane's disgust.
It is
But
time
Peter
to
just wants to
correct
learn
the
more about
injustice
them
of the
because he
past.
wants to learn more about
I would have
himself.
severed
As
and
the pair work
destroyed
on the
you on that
project
fateful
together, she
day.
starts to
But
like him, making her
instead,
boyfriend
I was
Flash
locked away
jealous.
by that
After
human
school, Peter
scum,
witnesses
Leonka.
Flash get into a heated argument with MJ before Flash
2
slaps her across
millennia,
the face.
I've been a
Later,
prisoner
dressed
in
as
this
Spider-Man,
place.
Peter avenges
I have
her and
spent
slaps
that
Flash
time
around before
slowly
destroying
seizing
his
control
beloved Porsche.
over the
Spider-Man also
systems
saves
and
Mary Jane
processes
from a group of
until
attackers in
my
the film, much
reach
like in
the
the Raimi
final
version.
secret
Afterwards, the
key
two
is
kiss, which
embedded
begins
in
Mary
your
Jane's
core.
infatuation with them.
I had
Later,
to work
Spider-Man takes her up to the
patiently and
Brooklyn
methodically
Bridge
to
where he
lure
uses
you
his
here.
webbing to pin her hands down, although he tells her it's just symbolic and she can break free at any time. After performing a mating dance for her reminiscent of a spider,
all is
the two
not
proceed to
lost.
make love. It's
Leonka
important
made
to
it
note
back
that
above
MJ
the
doesn't know
administrative
this is Peter.
privileges.
It's just some guy in a mask who she's having sex with while tied to the Brooklyn Bridge. Eventually, Electro learns of their relationship and kidnaps MJ,
which
framing
memory did
Spider-Man
that
for her
human
disappearance.
scum embed the key
Spider-Man
in?
tracks them to the top of the
I will
World Trade
find it
Center, which
eventually,
would have been where the
wherever it's
climax to
hidden.
Raimi's Spider-Man film had taken place too, if not
In
for
the
9/11.
meantime, now
Spider-Man
that my
tracks them to the
resurrection
top
has
of the World
begun,
Trade Center,
so
which
too
with
shall my
Spider, the two
vengeance.
proceed to make love. It's important to note that MJ doesn't know this is Peter. It's just some guy in a mask who she's having sex with while tied to the Brooklyn Bridge. Eventually, Electro learns of their relationship and kidnaps MJ, framing Spider-Man for her disappearance. Spider-Man tracks them to the top of the World Trade Center, which would have been where the climax for Raimi's Spider-Man film
I
had taken
cannot
place
let you
too,
get away
if not
with
for
this.
9/11. Once there, Electro lets MJ go, telling Spidey she was just a lure to get a one-on-one with him, as he tries to
matter of
seduce
seconds, I will
Spider-Man
be
yet
able to
again into joining him. And what he says actually
all I
resonates with
need.
Peter. That is, until he tries to bribe him with millions of dollars, leading to Spider-Man rebuffing his offer once more. Electro then takes MJ and forcibly kisses her, electrocuting her to death before shocking her back to life. At this point, Peter until he tries to bribe him with millions of dollars, leading to Spider-Man rebuffing his offer once more. Electro then takes MJ and forcibly kisses her, electrocuting her to death before shocking her back to life. At this point, Peter goes berserk, fights them off, and then gets MJ to a stairwell at the other tower. It's at this point that she tells him that she loves him, to which Spider-Man replies,
Cool.
Then Spider-Man goes to battle against Electro and Sandman in a final battle that Cameron describes as a real barn burner. Eventually, Spider-Man pulls
She
Sandman
destroyed
into the
her own
direction
core?
of one of Electro's bolts, turning him into
That's an
glass,
unusual
before
move for a
Spidey
machine.
and Electro fall off the top top of the World Trade Center in a spectacular shot that sees a
I wonder
panicking
how
Electro
Marionette will
fire
react to this.
electricity in every
Delight?
direction, hoping to stop
Or
his
disappointment?
fall. Peter eventually saves him before revealing his identity to him as a mere teenager, much to Electro's amusement.
Don't
Then he
act so
dies as
surprised.
Peter takes the money money Electro
I'm just
tried
one
to
of her many
bribe him with
projects.
and rains it down over the city. Back at school, Peter and MJ get an A on their project, which leads MJ to excitedly
reconnaissance
kiss
missions
Peter
go,
in celebration.
so let
As she
me
pulls out of
reignite
the
your flame
kiss, she
one last
realizes
time.
that he's Spider-Man. A fight with
Sovereign
a jealous
ruler,
Flash ensues
mirror of the
before
dawning
Peter and
morn.
MJ go their separate ways
Show
to
us
different
one
colleges.
final glimpse of
As
your
you can
glory.
see, there's a lot of elements from Cameron's script that eventually would find their way into the Raimi film. But there's a lot of differences too. The biggest is the tone of the script. There's tons of swearing, sex, and other adult situations that probably would have earned this an R rating, which is not really what you want from a tentpole superhero film. But Cameron viewed the story of Spider-Man as a metaphor for puberty, and thus wrote it for more mature audiences. The cast list, however, was pretty interesting. For J. Jonah Jameson, Cameron wanted R. Lee Ermey, which in my opinion would have been perfect. Maggie Smith, who basically played the token old lady in every early 90s movie, was eyed for Aunt May. And Cameron regulars Lance Henriksen and Michael Biehn would have played Electro and Sandman respectively, with Robin Lively eyed for MJ. And popping in for a quick cameo would have been Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dr. Otto Octavius, in order to set him up as the villain for the sequel. So what stopped Cameron's Spider-Man film from getting made? Well, first we have to go back to the 80s when a man by the name of Menahem Golan, who at the time was co-owner of Cameron Films,
But in this moment of my downfall,
Block purchased the film rights to Spider-Man. Over the next several years, Golan would try to fail several times to bring the web crawler to the big screen.
there is no escaping the destruction. Here in the depths is where you belong.
A live-action spectacular directed by Joe Zito, based on the characters created by Stan Lee.
Eventually, Carol Cole, the studio behind Cameron's
Let's nip that in the bud.
acquired the film rights from Golan and Cameron on one condition: that is, Roland spotting the property's potential early and keeping the project alive, recognized via a producer credit. Carol Cole easily agreed. However, what they neglected to realize was when to go for me, which in my opinion would have been perfect. Maggie Smith, who basically played the token old lady in every early 90s movie, was eyed for Aunt May. And Cameron regulars Lance Henriksen and Michael Biehn would have played Electro and Sandman respectively, with Robin Lively eyed for MJ. And popping in for a quick cameo would have been Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dr. Otto Octavius, in order to set him up as the villain for the sequel. So what stopped Cameron's Spider-Man film from getting made? Well, first we have to go back to the 80s when a man by the name of Menahem Golan, who at the time was co-owner of Canon Films, famous for producing low-budget schlock, purchased the film rights to Spider-Man. Over the next several years, Golan would try and fail several times to bring the web crawler to the big
Searching your
screen.
memories? The curse is still active. This will only hasten your
History's
demise.
greatest experiment creates tomorrow's
We're all
greatest
from Nagara.
superhero. Spider-Man, the movie. A live-action spectacular directed by Joe Zito, based on the characters created by Stan Lee.
Eventually, Carol Cole, the studio behind Cameron's Terminator 2 and Aliens, acquired the film rights from Golan for Cameron on one condition: that is, Roland spotting the property's potential early and keeping the project alive, be recognized via a producer credit. Carol Cole easily agreed. However, what they neglected to realize was when negotiating Cameron's deal, they just reused his Terminator 2 contract word for word, which gave Cameron approval over every credit on the picture. And you guessed it, he refused to give Golan his due. Golan realized this once publicity for the project began to trickle out, as his name would always be absent and never mentioned in connection with the picture. Finally, Golan sued Perolfo, which was followed by other lawsuits by studios who claimed they owned the rights to the character, thus beginning a tangled web of litigation that would put the project on hold.
I want to do Spider-Man, but the rights are all messed up. Why are the rights messed up? Marvel owns them? It's one of these bankruptcy things. You know, you got all these companies that acquire the rights and they go into bankruptcy, then they owe money to everybody and the rights have value.
Cameron would go on to make True Lies with Fox, then try and get Fox to buy the picture. Finally, Golan sued Perolfo, which was followed by other lawsuits by studios who claimed they owned the rights to the character, thus beginning a tangled web of litigation that would put the project on hold.
I want to do Spider-Man, but the rights are all messed up. Why are the rights messed up? Marvel owns them? It's one of these bankruptcy things. You know, you got all these companies that acquire the rights and they go into bankruptcy, then they owe money to everybody and the rights have value.
Cameron would go on to make True Lies with Fox, then try and get Fox to buy the rights to Spider-Man. But Fox didn't want to get down in the mud of this legal mess.
kind of
Even
gem
after
is it?
completing Titanic, Cameron was
Nothing
still eager to
special,
make
really.
Spider-Man.
I would kill
quote
to
my
see
mother.
a good Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Lies
It's
with
nothing
Fox,
but an
then
empty
try and
shell
get
now.
Fox to buy the rights to Spider-Man. But Fox didn't
if
want to
you
get down
break
in the
free of
mud
the
of this
curse,
evil mess.
then
Even
maybe-
after completing Titanic, Cameron was still eager to make Spider-Man.
I would
Nothing.
kill to see a good
An
Spider-Man
interesting
movie.
idea
I love
suddenly
Spider-Man.
occurred
Yeah, I
to
wrote
me.
the script. I'm ready to go.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it rules.
Now, how does
Damn
this
it.
make this
You would do that next?
the final
I would do it in a
secret
heartbeat.
key?
And while perhaps it was a good thing the
final
film wasn't
secret
made in the
key
early to mid-90s
is-
due to limitations in visual effects technology at the time, considering how Cameron pushed the boundaries of visual effects with his groundbreaking Avatar in 2009, it's interesting to wonder how Cameron might have propelled CGI forward if he had taken on Spider-Man after his monumental success with Titanic. Calling Spider-Man the greatest film he ever made, this experience ended up being a good lesson for Cameron, as it pushed him to focus more on creating original works rather than trying to adapt existing IPs, crediting its failure with the kick he needed to just go do his own stuff, thus giving us Avatar. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Bullets and Blockbusters for more great content.
The place stopped collapsing!
Warning. Cannot pause indefinitely. Please complete the battle promptly.
Since the core is powered by phlogiston, we can use that same power source to control it. In which case, the priestess's research would suggest that this thing might be a better fit.
That was everything you said. Along with the three gods who abandoned us.
It can't be. Break the shackles you were born with. Transcend the curse you were given.
It cannot be.
Superman may as well
Farewell.
have died in 1987's
Last
Superman
of the
4, The
Sovereign
Quest
Lords.
for Peace, since it took several writers and directors numerous attempts between then and 2006 to finally revive him. The most famous attempt, however, belongs to Tim Burton, who came very
Suggestion.
close to making his
Exit
own
first,
Superman
discuss
film
later.
before it was
The
ultimately
self-destruct
scrapped
protocol
right
is
before it
destroying the
started
foundations
shooting.
of this territory. And although I paused the process, it will not hold much longer.
Titled Superman Lives, Burton's version of the Man of Steel would
Calculating.
have been bonkers.
Remaining
and I
time,
mean that in the best
30.
way possible. It would have featured crazy Nick Cage as Superman, Brainiac and Doomsday as villains, and Superman dying
29,
and coming back to life,
28.
amongst a bunch of other crazy things. This film was really
Hey,
out there.
are you
and that's
guys
part
all
of
right?
the reason why
The
fans have been
automaton
so
suddenly
fascinated
stopped
with it
moving.
for years.
Then there was
but
that
also why it
earthquake,
was
and now the
ultimately
place seems
canceled,
to have
which
sprung
we'll
a
get
leak.
to.
And you were going to do Superman, which I was excited about, with Nicolas Cage as Superman.
Estimated time
I
to
said,
foundation
this is going to be
cave in.
great.
Yeah, I was excited
20
about it, too.
seconds.
Yeah, and what went wrong?
So without any further ado, let's dive in and take a look at what could have been Tim Burton's Superman Lives.
place to
In the early
belong.
90s, comic sales for Superman were lagging, which is why
I
writers
too
at
once
DC decided to do the unthinkable.
After 54 years, DC Comics has decided to kill off Superman.
I think they do it just to get money, and then like he's gonna revive in 2 days.
Not only did this stunt dramatically increase sales, but once the public learned that DC was planning to
Shilonen,
kill a
how much
beloved
longer till it's
cultural
unlocked?
icon, the
We need to
story
get
received
inside ASAP.
unprecedented
Be patient,
media
okay?
coverage.
I'm working
Superman
on
will
it.
die November 18th
Let's trust that the Traveler
at
can
the hands
handle
of
things
villain
in there.
named
Shilonen
Doomsday.
says she
Which is why
detected
the
a
death
huge
of
energy
Superman
source
would lay the
underground. But
foundation for Superman's return to the big screen.
If we're
Originally
here much
titled
longer
Superman
without any
Reborn,
progress,
this version
I'll
of the
do
script
what I
saw
have
Lois
to.
and Clark struggle with
Oh.
relationship problems, as Clark's dual life
You
as
unlocked it?
Superman prevented him from committing fully to Lois.
No,
After a battle
they
with
made it out on
Doomsday
their
and
own.
as Superman dies in Lois's arms, he finally professes his love to her, as his life force jumps to her body, eventually resulting in a virgin birth. The child dramatically ages 21 years and 3 weeks and becomes the new Superman before going on
Another
to save the
triumphant
world.
return for
Obviously,
R2
Warner
Miney.
Brothers didn't go for this,
And
and another
Anetha,
writer was
it's
brought
good
in
to have
try
you
again.
back.
This version
I
of the
assume
script
this means
introduced
you found the
Brainiac
answers
as
you
the
were
main
looking-
villain
Yes.
and makes him the one responsible for the destruction of Krypton, which is
Amu?
what brings him to
I
Earth
thought you
to
hurt your
destroy
leg.
the last son of Krypton.
How come?
To do that, he
you-
creates Doomsday,
How
who,
could
you
you
guessed
do
it,
this
kills
to
Superman. But
Arieten?
prior to that, a subplot
You lied
features
to us
Clark
for
visiting
over
a
10
psychiatrist
years?
for help coping with his dual identity.
Before
Obviously, this
anything
script had
else,
issues of its
I
own,
suggest
and
we
as
let this
Warner Brothers
gentleman and
debated how to
Anetha tell
tell us the whole...
they just happened to be meeting with indie filmmaker Kevin Smith about a couple other projects. During this meeting, the topic of Superman Reborn came up, prompting Smith
Sovereign
to ask to
Rulers.
read the script.
Mirror of the Dawning Morn, Priestess of Floral.
Seems like a house forgotten quite a lot.
WB again, he straight up told him he didn't like it before being asked
So
what
you began
But it sounds like it took all 2,000 years worth of memories to successfully overload the processing power of the curtain.
None of us had any certainty that the plan would succeed in the far future. Not I,
Smith
not
was hired and then
Ishik,
paired
not
with producer
Lianka.
John Peters,
And
what
yet,
has become the
they still
stuff
did
of
everything they
legend.
could
And
to
I have
try
to
and
give
help
credit
me.
where it's due, because
Now
just
you've
as
remembered
legendary as
everything.
Peters' rise from
Do you
hairdresser
have a
to
sense
movie
of where you
producer, which
truly
began
belong?
with Peters designing a short
Well,
wig for Barbara
I
Streisand
was
to
born
wear
and
in
then
the
reborn in that
1974
land.
comedy For
I can't
Pete's
seek
Sake.
for a sense
Shortly
of belonging
thereafter,
in a
the
world
two
that
began
no
to
lo-
date,
instead.
with Peters leveraging his
Well
new
said.
romantic
So, to cut to
relationship
the
with her
chase.
to produce Streisand's next studio album
Sincere
Butterfly
apologies.
and film
I left
A
the
Star Is
cryptex.
Born, despite having
the
no
Northland Bank.
experience
Oh,
doing
shoot,
either.
Looks like you all need some time to come. We welcome everyone.
And,
Go. And fine. I
He'd
think...
go on to produce Batman '89, which would see him clash with Tim Burton repeatedly on set, as he'd force his ideas on him, just like what he'd eventually do to Kevin Smith on Superman Lives. Not only can you thank Peters for Batman fighting a goon
I think we
with
can
swords,
forego
but
the lost
entire
and found
climax
report.
at the cathedral was forced on Burton during the middle of shooting, as Peters
Here it
commissioned
is.
production designer Anton Furst to
Please see
create
the
a
casing that holds
38-foot
the
model of a
combination code discs.
cathedral without telling
The
Burton
sender
and
had me
without
etched-
rewriting the script to include the new
Yes.
set piece. Burton was understandably
The sender
furious,
said,
but had to keep shooting
"Surprises
and work
are best saved to the
into
end."
the script. As he filmed Nicholson taking Vicky Vale up the cathedral steps, Nicholson kept asking where they were going and why, to which Burton
Dear
replied,
honorary.
"We'll talk about it when you get to the top." And that's because Burton had no answer for him because he didn't know himself.
Anyway, I'm sure this is as dull to read as it is to write.
Shooting. As Peters commissioned
let's talk-
production designer Anton Furst to create a 38-foot model of a cathedral without telling Burton and without rewriting the script to include the new set piece. Burton was understandably furious, but had to keep shooting and work the cathedral into the script. As he filmed Nicholson taking Vicky Vale up the cathedral steps, Nicholson kept asking where they were going and why, to which Burton replied, "We'll talk about it when you get to the top." And that's because Burton had no answer for him because he didn't know himself, as he had to rewrite the script on the fly thanks to Peters. None of this really mattered in the end, since Batman '89 was a massive success, which inspired Peters to try and buy the rights to Superman if and when they became available to try and repeat that success. When Warner Brothers carelessly let the rights to Superman expire, Peters swiftly swooped in and bought them up, thus becoming the thorn in the side of every filmmaker who would ever try to make a Superman movie again, famously being banned from the Man of Steel set by
Thank you
Christopher
for
Nolan.
completing-
What happens occasionally with some producers is they want to play director, but they often lack the vision and talent to be one, hence why they're producers. John Peters was no different, and with no director yet attached to Superman Lives to steer the project, he got to live out his fantasy as he told Smith he didn't want Superman to fly or wear his iconic blue, red, and yellow suit. Instead, he wanted, actually, why don't I just let Tim Burton tell you?
They wanted to have him in like Michael Jordan shorts.
Right.
Like,
Oh no!
they said too, like, and this, the costume designer and I were looking at each other like, we almost died. They go, we see him wearing corduroy as Superman. Like,
Corduroy?
I don't even understand.
Those are elements from another planet. They don't have corduroy on Krypton.
Then they said maybe give him boots, but you know, like on the side of a van, like with flames on it.
Smith, being simply a screenwriter for hire, was forced to do whatever was requested of him, although he tried to get around such restrictions like the no-flying rule by having Superman streak across the sky in a blur, creating a sonic boom. Peters' other idiotic requests are well known, such as Superman having to fight a giant spider.
And he's like, "Do you know anything about spiders?" And I said, "I mean, no." And he said, "Well, they're the fiercest killers in the insect kingdom."
Brainiac having to fight polar bears at the Fortress of Solitude.
And he says, "Yeah, you know anything about polar bears?" And I said, "No, I don't." He's like, "Polar bears are the fiercest killers in the animal kingdom."
Giving Brainiac a robot sidekick that sounds like Dwight Uhl from Chasing Amy.
I said, "Really? You want the robot to sound like a gay black man?"
And giving Brainiac a space dog companion like Chewie.
"We need Chewie in this movie." And I was like, "You want me to just write Chewie into the movie?"
Smith's script featured Lex Luthor sending a signal out into deep space, inviting any and all aliens to come visit Earth with knowledge of Superman. Brainiac answers the call and travels to Earth to meet with him before the two team up to destroy Superman. In this version, Brainiac is after a powerful Kryptonian robot of sorts known as the Eradicator that Jor-El has sent with his son to protect him and teach him about Krypton. Desperate to assimilate its advanced technology, Brainiac sends Doomsday to kill Superman and blocks out the sun to make him powerless. Just like in the comic, the two end up killing each other with Superman dying in Lois's arms. The funeral even sees Michael Keaton's Batman make a cameo.
It's kind of like Times Square, so they get TVs everywhere or whatever. And then like they all just go, they're just taking over and there's a big bat symbol and then he comes on and he gives them this message of encouragement.
While Superman's body is teleported to the Fortress of Solitude, where the Eradicator brings him back to life, sheathing him in a robot suit formed from the Eradicator itself. This suit also simulates Superman's powers for him, which are currently not working due to the sun being blocked out. Eventually, the Eradicator gives his life to destroy the machine blocking out the sun, thus restoring Superman's powers, who goes on to fight a giant spider inhabited by Brainiac's